All right, well, good evening.
Hello,
Hi there.
how are you?
Good, thank you. And you?
Oh, thanks.
Let's see, I see who. I see, well, I don't see Julie anymore. She disappeared for a second.
Welcome back, Julie.
She's there. And I see Jeff. And that's all I see from our committee so far.
Good evening. Got a couple minutes. Good evening, Jeff. There's Dana.
Thank you, Jules.
Are you all finished, Jules?
Mhm. Hello, Dana. How are you? Dana, you're on mute.
Hey, Bob, just looking ahead, do you have the ability to mute people if we need that?
I do. I
Okay.
do. Yeah. I don't know whether it's permanent, but I can at least mute them temporarily. There's Judy. Judy's gone to space. Hey, Judy, say hi so we know we can hear you. Uh-oh.
Hi.
There you go.
Okay, hear you.
And Dana, take yourself off of mute and say hi so we know we can hear you too.
Hello, Bob, and FINCOM and community.
Hi there. So we're waiting on who? Barbara?
Yes.
Barbara and DeWitt.
There's DeWitt.
There we go.
Oh, my Lord,
Hey,
Judy.
everybody. Oh, sorry about the background. There we go.
I like it. No, leave that one.
No, I was at a conference all day today. That was my moderator background.
Oh, keep that one. I like it.
I like it too.
Can you send it to me? I'll put it up.
We might need a moderator.
I'll tell you, virtual conferences are not any fun.
Okay, now I can stop doing my other meeting. Boy. What the hell's that? Oh.
The numbers keep climbing.
I know. Some way this thing can tell us how many we actually have.
26 so far. There's a little counter by the participants icon.
Is it reruns night on TV?
Oops.
It's asking me to send her the link, so I'll do that.
Wait, who asked you?
Barbara.
Barbara, okay.
I always have to go way back in my emails to get it.
Yeah, I just sent it to her, so she should be here shortly.
I sharpened a lot of pencils for tonight.
Bob, you're Tony Barletta tonight?
Let me get out of disguise here. Sorry. Where is it? Rename. There we go. That's better. Hello, Allison. Allison's very wise. She's staying on mute.
I can never click on it fast enough. Hi, nice to see everybody.
Hi, Allison. Nice to
Hi.
see you.
I sent Barbara the link, but I don't see her yet. You're not out there anywhere, are you, Barbara?
There she is. Hi there.
My links all said they were for last week.
Well, we should be able to use the same link every week in
I know.
theory.
I went
Yeah.
back to all of those old links and at least 3 or 4 of them, and they all came up saying, this is for a Zoom meeting on April
Hmm.
8th.
Well, you're here now.
You're here
Yes.
now, but the Tuesday meeting should be the same link
I know.
from now until it expires.
Yeah, I know. It just, who knows?
So, all right, well, it is 7:05.
Hi.
And it looks like we have more than a quorum. I think we have a full house. So present from the Finance Committee are, I'm reading in order as they appear, Julie Tarmy, Bob Vanderslice, John Fogum, Jeff Lewis, Dana Sheehan, DeWitt Brown, Judy Zohora, and Barbara Beatty. I hope I haven't missed anybody. We are also joined by Attorney Jeff Blake, Josh Antrim, a selectman, is with us. Tony will join us as soon as he can. He's finishing up another meeting right now. So the meeting is now in order. And before we do anything else, I would like to report the happy news that Tony is the proud father of a healthy baby girl.
Oh,
Oh, hooray.
wonderful.
What's her
That's
name?
breaking news.
I believe the name is Mia,
It's gotta be.
or I told him she should have named her Roquette, but
It's Amia Juliet.
there you go.
Oh, I
Oh,
love it.
that's terrific.
Here because.
Excellent.
What a beautiful name.
Mia Juliet. I love it. How big was she?
He
Allison,
texted, I think she was 6 pounds, 10 ounces, or 12 ounces.
That's a good size.
Good size baby. Yeah. And she had on quite an outfit for them, not knowing that they were going to they didn't know if they were having a girl or a boy. And she had on a very cute outfit in the picture that I got. So
anyway,
The good news. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, wonderful news.
okay, good. So agenda for tonight, what I would recommend we do is let's approve the minutes and then move immediately to discussing the questions for Northeastern topic. I'm hoping we can do the approval of the minutes very quickly, and let's do the Northeastern part quick or second while we have Jeff Blake here and not waste his time.
I would like to suggest that we change the order and that we do the question about whether or not we think we should meet with Northeastern before we discuss the questions. And I have
Yes.
reasons for that, but I think that's the right order.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I was using the questions for Northeastern sort of broadly to include both if and how and the questions themselves. But I agree with your order, but let's do the minutes. Barbara, you sent a set and I think Julie sent a set too.
Yes, I have 3 different weeks. I have March 25th, March 30th, and April 6th.
We already approved the 25th and the 30th.
We did?
We approved those last week.
We were
You
busy.
weren't here last year.
Yeah.
Okay, well then I just have the 6th.
Correct.
We have
And
the
I
6th
sent
and
you
the
the
8th.
8th.
Oh, is there a motion?
So moved.
A second? Discussion?
We're talking about the 6th now, correct?
The 6th, yes.
Okay, yeah, they look good to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor? Roll
Brown
call.
eye.
Yes, aye.
Hold your eye.
Brown eye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Army, I.
Beatty, aye.
Sahara, I.
And she and I.
Thank you.
Excellent. Barbara, you have a set?
Yes, I sent them to you today.
Yep,
Do we have a motion
I move to accept.
and a second?
What date was that, Barbara?
March 8th, excuse me, April 8th.
April 8th. Did I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Brown eye.
Can we have a quick discussion before we vote?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, so the only thing I thought the minutes look fantastic, and thank you very much, Barbara. The one thing that I would add is I had forwarded the committee the PDF of the trail of emails that I sent initially to Jeff Trussell and then to some other Northeastern representatives. And I would like, you know, again, I told the committee in an email, but I'll state it here that thread of emails should be added to the record for these minutes.
Okay, so I will, then we can wait till approve them next week.
No,
and
no.
we'll-
I sent that to everybody.
Yeah, so
Right,
I-
no, I got it. I just,
Okay.
in the minutes, I need to put see attached or something like that.
yeah, so what I think the appropriate action here would be that someone makes a motion to accept the minutes as amended by John.
I will do that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second it.
All in favor?
Hold your eye.
Maybe I.
Brown eye.
Aye.
She and I.
Vanderslice, aye.
Sahora, I.
Carmy, I.
So John, is what you want me to do just to say, see attached and attach it?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, just bundle them into the same document.
yep.
okay, I'll try to, copy them and paste them.
Yeah, or
And then
just-
Barbara, I'll put them into the letterhead and submit them.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. So the broad topic of questions for Northeastern, and I'd like to just frame this up a little
Bob,
bit.
Bob, for a second, sorry, I apologize for jumping in there, but can we pull up the list of all our articles? And are these the last two articles we have to vote on?
yeah,
Yes,
So
Yeah.
we're all good to go except for these two.
Mhm.
correct.
Okay, never mind. Thank you. Good.
All right. All right, so John had reached out to Jeff Trussell of Northeastern. And from reading the email string, he was then referred to two other gentlemen, and kind of the email conversation continued with the other two gentlemen. It was a Michael Ferrari and a Michael Glover, if my memory serves.
correct.
Um,
Ugh.
And right now, I guess, what's the fair way to put this? Northeastern is on notice that we may be sending them questions. To my knowledge, they have not agreed or refused to respond to those questions. And that's the topic for the evening. As I understand it, the goal of this, should we choose to send the questions to them, is to inform us, the Finance Committee, in making our recommendation. As we consider this, we have to balance a bunch of things. We have to balance not jeopardizing any ongoing or potential future legal action between the town and Northeastern. We clearly have to respect the open meeting law. There is a huge question of timing. I'm going to circle back on a couple of these in a second, but there's a question of timing. We have to, by town bylaw, we have to get this booklet out in advance of the town meeting, which means the book needs to go to the printer on Friday, unless we've learned something that I don't know about. So Friday is an absolute deadline. And while we're doing all this, I think we have to appear, and we certainly can't act as if we are negotiating on the town's behalf.
Bob, going back to the deadline for the warrant book, can we get a confirmation on that Friday is the drop dead date? Because my understanding is that technology has advanced somewhat, and they might be able to give us more time.
We can certainly try, but in absence of any hard evidence to the contrary, we need to treat Friday as our date. That's what we.
That's what I understood.
That's
It's a
what
much
we-
larger book than it was last year.
Who's writing the letter? Who's writing the front piece of the book?
I have started an outline of it, but I should have added this to my list of things we need to consider. All of the stuff that we produce has to be reviewed by the entire committee. We're not going to have another case of something that was a unilateral either recommendation or letter getting into the book without
Thank you.
consensus of the committee. I mean, I was not part of that incident in the past, but I'm sensitive to it.
So the one thing I'll just say, as long as we're talking about the logistics of putting the book together. So we obviously have the two votes that we need to make, and we need to make the form the recommendation statements for those two articles. We also have, I'm kind of tasked with the logistics of putting the 150 to 200 page puzzle together with a lot of great help so far from, the committee that's contributed the statements, and Allison has done a very, she must be kind of Debbie reincarnate, because she's kind of picked it up. Maybe
Allison,
take it to
you don't
another
know the
level.
history, but that's high praise.
Yeah. So in any case, with that Friday deadline, that means me taking days off of work Thursday and Friday to make sure that it gets done. So what I'll ask the rest of the committee is, tomorrow morning, I'll try to send out the draft of the warrant that has the recommendation statements to date. And then if the committee can help fill in any holes, because there's still some holes, and get those to me or to us as quickly as possible, that would be great. And then again, as far as how we go about formulating the language in the letter, and then also for the the two key recommendations that we still need to make, we're just going to have to, everybody's going to have to pitch in, and we're going to have to operate under a time crunch. So that's all I'll say.
John, do we
Yeah.
need to have separate statements for, because I emailed you about this, for all
Yeah.
of those CPC?
No, I think
section?
whatever language we come up with that we can rationalize is totally fine. And I'll go back and look at what you wrote, but I do remember seeing the email, but I haven't fully incorporated or processed your point.
I just listed the ones that were
Yeah,
outstanding, and I wondered what we need to do about them. And I divided them up, like I would take some, you
okay,
would take some,
yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah.
Do we
So
need to go in depth on those, or do we just need to put recommended or
That
not?
would be-
recommended?
That would be,
I think we can, for a lot of them, we can just say recommended, but maybe
Right.
having some kind of general statement might be appropriate or helpful.
so you're going to look at those and let us know about that?
Yeah, I'll include a more detailed kind of feedback on that in my recap that I send tomorrow morning. How about that?
Sounds
And
good.
I'm going to drag us back to the topic at hand.
Thank you.
Sure. So the not jeopardize piece, not jeopardize the town in any ongoing or future lawsuits. Jeff Blake has joined us, and we're going to ask him to speak to that in just a second. I would suggest at minimum that any questions have to be reviewed by counsel, by Jeff, before they go out. That to me, that's an absolute minimum requirement. As you look at the questions, though, I see some common themes in there. So I suspect that compiling the questions into a unified set may not be that difficult, right? There's a common theme about operating expenses. There's a common theme about the capital expenses that the folks on the internet and Facebook say don't exist. But there's a question about that, and there's some other common themes in there as well. Jeff, do you want to just speak to this for a second?
Happy to.
As long as you want, not just a second.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thanks everybody for having me. I found out about this possible request to Northeastern and questions to Northeastern late last week, and I've been giving it quite a bit of thought. As your chairman said, we currently have litigation regarding this property. It's an Article 97 claim that they've dedicated the property to public use, which would prevent them from being able to then develop it. It's essentially been given to the public to use as a park, as a passive recreation, bird watching, and the like. That claim is currently before the Superior Court, and we believe we have some meritorious arguments to be made regarding that. With respect to the warrant article, it's no.
This is to have a loudspeaker.
It's no secret that we're asking to acquire by gift purchase or eminent domain, the property down there at East Point, same property that is the subject of the Article 97 claim. It's my understanding that you want to ask Northeastern questions about that East Point property. In my opinion, as a litigator and as your counsel, I don't think that it's a good idea to be bringing the opposite side in to discuss what is the subject of litigation. Anything that we say could be misconstrued or construed against us. Even the mere framing of some questions could be construed as an admission that we don't believe we have public access. We don't believe X or we don't believe Y. I understand that you want additional information, but I go on the website and I've been involved in this for over 2 years. The information has gone back and forth and back and forth. And frankly, even if you do ask Northeastern questions, the answers that you will give will be self-serving answers for them. So I would strongly recommend, not would, I strongly recommend that you don't meet with them and that you don't reach out to them. And that is because I worry about the effect on the current litigation and the possibility of the litigation with respect to any eminent domain, or, I mean, obviously, if we purchased a property from them, we wouldn't be in litigation. But at this point, I would strongly recommend that you don't meet with them. And if you have to, I think any communication should go from counsel to counsel.
Hey, Jeff, can you just give a little reminder and refresher on like the current state of where that Article 97 claim is in terms of the process?
It's before the court. We've gone back and forth. There's been summary judgment motions. We are likely to be going to trial. I don't know the exact date on the trial, but it is not resolved, and it's not going to be resolved in the next, well, 3 or 4 days or before town meeting.
Okay.
I would support that. I think it's very late in the game to be asking these questions. I don't know what else we're going to learn, and I certainly wouldn't want to jeopardize anything that's already been accomplished.
Dana,
I agree. I support that as well. I don't think that it's appropriate, given that there's ongoing litigation, that that's not a time when it's appropriate for us to get involved.
So I agree. I said that last week. The concern I have now is that we had said that Northeastern didn't want to speak with us. We reached out. They said that they would speak with us, and now we're saying that we don't want to talk to them. And so we're kind of an odd pickle.
Well, I don't see us as being in that odd pickle. We're being advised by our town council about what we should do.
Awesome.
That's
I'm just saying, I think we're in a pickle. Oh, and look, Tony's in. Hey, congratulations, Tony.
Yay, new baby girl.
Mia.
But possibly us asking questions or someone asking questions might get people negotiating. Good attorneys negotiate. They don't go to trial.
yeah, exactly, but we're not attorneys.
Right.
Well, but I am, and I can assure you that we have exhausted that route. It's not like we have never done that. I can't go too far into it because frankly, settlement negotiations are confidential. But the overtures have been made, discussions have ensued, and they haven't gone anywhere. I think that the latest response by Northeastern to the boards, to an earlier board's letter, read that response. It should tell you how this case is now being postured. And I can tell you by reading that response, I don't find that to be a response that invites further negotiation.
I'd like to make a comment. I'd just like to say that the FINCOM is a separate branch of government than the executive branch. I don't feel like there's anything to be afraid of. Posing written questions to Northeasterns that could help the FINCOM make a financial estimate or evaluation of these two articles. This is not something that's going to derail anything in process. We don't speak for the executive branch. We are asking questions. and there is time. So I'm in favor of some conversations or questions with Northeastern.
Jeff Blake,
Mhm.
you said you don't advise we speak to them. That does not preclude submitting a list of questions, or it does.
When I speak, I mean communicate with them outside of council. Again, as I'd indicated before, and I can't give you an exact example because I haven't seen it, but the mere framing of some of the questions could be detrimental to a town's position, either now or later on.
Even if you had final edit.
You know, if I have final edit, then I'll edit them all right. To be serious, I understand where you're coming from. I just don't think that it's a good idea. But ultimately, if you do land there, I would ask that you allow me to look those questions over and provide them to Northeastern's council to council.
Hey, Jeff, but if you're worried about that kind of interaction or derailing a lawsuit, something else pending, by you viewing the questions, you're putting yourself in that place. Because we are a separate branch of the government and we put questions, that's not to create any risk.
You're a separate branch, but you are the town, and the town all falls under the umbrella of the Board of Selectmen in the town. So anything that's coming out of the town, especially a full committee or board, may or may not have weight in a court proceeding.
We just don't know until we do it. And, just retreating to our respective attorneys' corners is not going to move this process forward.
It's not going to do us any good to have counsel and not take their advice.
I agree.
Absolutely.
May I quote a letter of April 5th, 2021. First, with respect to the university's willingness to engage in mediation.
Hey, DeWitt, who is this letter from and to?
It's from Northeastern to Mark Cullinane. It's available on the Northeastern website. It's available in many places.
Go ahead.
Okay. First, with respect to the university's willingness to engage in mediation, as stated in my February 17th letter, the university is fully willing to do so.
Do so what?
I'm not sure how that's.
I think that negotiations should be entertained, frankly.
Well,
That's a year ago.
What?
Did you say a year? Did you say 2020 or 2021?
The letter that I was quoting was from April 5th, 2021.
April
So can I jump in? And I know you guys are commission
By
members.
Ralph Martin.
yeah, go ahead. Jeff, what's up?
There's a difference between an open meeting negotiation between a FINCOM that, with all due respect, has no authority to settle a case, and a court or a mediation. At mediation, the very first thing that we do, and I don't mean to be condescending if anyone's been to mediation, but the very first thing you do is you sit down in the room, the mediator comes in and says, in much more eloquent terms, what's said here stays here. Nothing can be used in court or nothing can be used against either party. We don't have that same ability if you're going to try to carry on some type of negotiation or discussion in an open forum.
It is the place of the FINCOM to negotiate.
It is not the place of the FINCOM to negotiate.
Absolutely.
Nobody's talking about negotiating.
That's right.
We're talking about questions.
Information.
Right.
But it's going to become part of a negotiation. You can't help that.
Yeah.
That's what Jeff is explaining to us. Because there's ongoing litigation, there's no way that this doesn't become part of that process. You can't have a conversation when there's ongoing litigation.
So
It's not
so-
possible.
So can the committee make a recommendation if there's ongoing litigation?
Yes,
Why is that?
because your job is to determine whether or not a financial article should go forward, not to determine which side it has a better case and the merits of a case. So, I mean, from a financial point of view, if the town believes that 1.5 million approving or recommending an eminent domain taking of East Point is something that should go before the town. I think that's vastly different than having the other side come in and asking questions and going back and forth during what may or may not be described as a negotiation. It probably wouldn't be a negotiation, but still, it's still an open-ended, an open conversation. So your duty is to make recommendations in the article, and I 100% agree that you can do that. I am just telling you that as your counsel in these cases, that I don't think that you ought to meet face to face with Northeastern in an open setting to discuss what could ultimately be, which is now and could ultimately end up in a further litigation.
Jeff, can I ask you a follow-up question on that point?
Mhm.
We don't necessarily have to have an open meeting with Northeastern. If we submit written questions and get some response from them on our questions related to our decision that we have to make, I'm not afraid of that. That's not something that's gonna derail any lawsuit. It's
I
up to
would
them
argue
to-
I would argue that that's worse. Because those
argue
written
that-
questions then become part of the lawsuit. I would argue that that's the worst that we could do.
I just don't understand the fear around that.
I don't
It's
think
not
it's
a
a
question of
fear.
fear.
I don't think it's
Conversation is-
definitely not a fear, Dana.
It's not a fear. It's about what's appropriate in a lawsuit. We're not supposed to be presenting. That's not our job. That's not our authority.
We're
I hear
looking,
that, Barbara.
And-
but,
and
we-
whether-
FinCom is looking for information in order to support or the recommendation or not support the recommendations that the FinCom is supposed to do. And you can gain information. Where did you gain it?
Hey, Bill, to your point, the folks on Northeastern side are going to have a very similar conversation to this, and they are not going to divulge anything that would harm or jeopardize or influence their case in any way, shape, or form. So we're not going to get a straight answer. We're going to get an answer that's filtered through the attorneys and the PR folks.
And Bob, we don't know until it happens, so I hear what you're saying. It could be an answer right out of Ralph Martin's office. At that point, it's not gonna help us much. But
It will be an answer right out of Ralph Martin's office.
It will be an
Or
answer.
Kevin O'Flaherty's office.
I would be surprised anything else. Besides everything else, and I agree with what's been said, our time is too short to do anything with it. And that I think is part of the core of the problem. We don't have enough time to do anything with it. And, but again, as I said, our council recommends not, we are the town. If we put something out, we actually speak for the town. I just don't think it's appropriate.
I agree with you, Judy.
Absolutely.
So were you gonna say something, Jeff? Sorry. Oh, so if I had to kind of guess or evaluate where we are, it looks like there's at least 4 people who are thinking that engaging Northeastern with the questions in the way that we've kind of initially proposed, 4 people would not be in favor of that.
Yeah, I was
I don't know.
actually going to ask for a sense of the committee.
Okay. And if we don't have a majority opinion to push the concept forward, then we're kind of stuck right where we are now, in a way. So my question is, if we were to validate that that's the point we're at, we're basically split, or maybe we're not split. Maybe, I guess maybe we need to find out. But let's just say we were split. I guess this is kind of a question for Jeff. If we were to kind of continue on the process of going through the questions that the members have been, put forth, and discuss them in this open forum, and then subsequently give them to you, just to kind of show us the process that, in terms of the questions that we may formulate, and you can explain to us in a lawyerly sense why those questions would need to be changed. And then if we forwarded them on to Northeastern with your approval, would that be something we could do in a way that we didn't use it to kind of guide our recommendation, but instead put the process in motion to continue the conversation?
I guess I don't 100% know what you mean by continue the conversation, but I worry that as a lawyer, I am trained and paid to think about everything bad that can happen. I worry that the mere discussion and framing of questions in an open session may or may not have an effect or give rise to an argument. That being said, if you have specific questions with respect to the article before you, I guess I would absolutely, if you're going to continue down that path, I'd ask not that you just not do it, but if you're going to continue down that path, that yes, you provide me with at least the drafts of what you are looking for. There may be another avenue that we could go through in the litigation to ask those questions. And if I find that they're not relevant to the Article 97 litigation, then I can review them. I can provide my feedback. And then at that point, we would have to make a decision as to whether or not we wanted to continue to go forward and ask these questions. My issue is just asking the questions themselves and how they may be framed may later on be used against us. And if you're going to ask me for an example, I can't really give you an example. It's just, it may come up that because you're asking XYZ question, aren't you necessarily inferring that the town really doesn't have, it isn't a public dedication, stuff like that. And it's just, it's just very difficult for me to figure out and try to provide for and prevent all these different contingencies that haven't come up yet. So the better course of action is just not asking them at this point. Now, we have, through the litigation process, the ability to ask interrogatories, depose certain members of Northeastern, and we are going forward with that. And certainly we could get input from the committee as to some of the questions they would like asked during a deposition, or maybe through an interrogatory. And that way it would be in the legal process.
At that point, it would be too late. I mean, we're trying to make a decision on these articles.
I'm sorry, I understood John's question to be is that we start the process now and get the answers, later on, but I guess I understood. I mean, I understand.
No,
you've got 3 days.
that is the point that I was making.
Yeah, so to Dana's point, let's talk about timing for a second. And after that discussion, I'm going to ask for a sense of the committee as to where we are here. Timing, as I understand it, like assuming we went forward, this is what would have to happen. We would have to take the questions, basically do a kind of a merge purge on them to compile all the questions, get those questions to Jeff. Jeff would have to review them, offer his response back, and we would have to give him a final edit based on his responses, give them to Northeastern. Northeastern has to have some time to respond to them as well, because they're not just going to do it extemporaneously, for sure. We would have to then consider their response, vote on it, and then write the recommendation. And then the entire committee needs to review and edit the written recommendation. And if I go back and I try to put dates to that, we've run out of runway. Questions to Jeff. We get them to Jeff tonight. Say Jeff can move mountains and get us a response by, he's going to hate me for like tomorrow afternoon. I don't know. But, argument, he gets it back to us Wednesday afternoon. We submit them to Northeastern Thursday morning. What are they going to do? Turn them around overnight? And then the only thing I can think of in that scenario is we have to meet, vote, write, and review during the day Friday. I don't see how the timing works.
There's just no time.
Well, under that scenario, I certainly understand how it's not going to work that way, but there are other ways. I mean, a lot of our questions are around payments in lieu of taxes. I mean, this is a very germane question to what we're considering. And, we all seem to have those questions about Northeastern's commitment to payment in lieu of taxes. That's a hypothetical. Mr. Blake, what do you think about that question?
I actually think that I read something from Northeastern wherein they had actually already said that had at least outlined what they thought they were willing to offer. What I think about that question is that it's that's all well and good, but when when the rubber meets the road and we have to put together a pilot agreement, sometimes these things fall by the wayside. And I frankly would hate to give Northeastern the opportunity to provide us with self-serving answers that later on down the road may not come about.
So can we take that consensus, Bob?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask people call names in the order I see them here in the Zoom window. So Dana,
What's the question?
the question is, do you want to proceed with submitting questions to Northeastern?
Yes, I feel like the FinCom should not be silenced in this area, and a few questions is not going to harm anybody. I vote yes. Questions.
Okay. I'm actually the next window, so I mean, I would love the opportunity to have an honest conversation with Northeastern, but I think the risk is too much, as Jeff has indicated. I think the timing is not going to work, and I'm worried that any answers we get will be just self-serving, protect our ask, answers. So I vote no. Julie?
I vote no. We don't have the time, and I think most of these questions have already been answered. And any answers they give us now, I would not be able to trust.
John?
I guess, I'm the instigator of this. And I guess I think of myself as kind of an idealist. And so when I came up with the concept or had the conversation with myself, about what are the possible ways, or is there any way to kind of, move us from the stalemate that we are seemingly in, I kind of decided that, you know what, I'll reach out to Jeff and see where this goes. And I did this before the Easter holiday. And, so emails and following up on emails, and time kind of rolled along. And I was hesitant to even bring the idea up last Thursday because I knew that, I guess I kind of foresaw that there was likely not to be sufficient time to do this in the way that I think would be best. So given that we've kind of now layered in this legal elements in terms of how our actions and discussions can influence ongoing litigation, that further complicates things. I mean, it further complicates things because I'm not 100% sure that I believe with complete fidelity what I'm being told. I kind of swing over to Dana's side of the fence and say, we're private citizens, we should be able to do what we want, and whatever we say and do shouldn't impact the town's position, but maybe it does. So I guess I kind of go back to the timeline, and I can't foresee that there's going to be sufficient sentiment among the committee to make it happen in the way that I idealistically envisioned. So I'm in favor of moving the conversation and questions forward however we can, but it doesn't seem like it can be on a timeline and in a way that necessarily facilitates our recommendations. So that's what I'll say. I'm in favor of it, but I'm kind of resigned to the fact that
Thank you.
it's probably not going to work out.
I think that was a yes. You want to go forward with the questions?
Yes.
Jeff, Lewis.
Well, I'll start with, I'm very frustrated.
Yeah.
I agree with Jeff Blake. A face-to-face meeting is probably not a prudent thing. However, written interrogatories is an integral part of any fact gathering, discovery, if you will. And I'm in favor of moving some questions once they've been reviewed by Jeff Blake to get some answers. So I guess I'm in favor of moving some questions forward.
All right. So what I heard was yes, but only in a written format. With a
Yes.
written format and written answers.
I concede that we can all trip over our own statements. So face-to-face may not be prudent at this juncture.
All right. Do it.
I think information is good. The timing is very, very, very problematic with all the reviews and everything. I agree with Jeff Lewis that written would be better.
Is that a yes or a no? Do it.
That's a yes. Information is good.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what I heard was yes, but only in a written format.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Judy?
So I'm now confused about what the question is, what the answers are. Because I thought the question was, do we go forward with questions against the advice of our counsel? And what I hear is, no, not in person. Yes, we send email. I don't really understand what the answers are going on here. I absolutely am not in favor of going against the advice of our counsel. And I certainly am not in favor of speaking for the town. And I understand that individually, we are individuals of the town and therefore we can do whatever we want. But when we come together as the town, which is why we can't do emails back and forth, which is why we can't consolidate documents without a town meeting. We speak for the town. So if the town's council tells us that that's not a wise thing to do, I absolutely don't think it's a wise thing to do.
So I'm taking that as a no.
That's a no.
And Barbara?
Also a no. I think we should follow the advice of town council. I think that's what is appropriate and what we should do.
All right, an interesting pickle. It's split. 50-50.
If it is indeed split 50-50, it doesn't go forward.
Right.
I think
That's correct.
I think that is the case. If you strictly apply Robert's Rules of Order, you would have to have a majority of the votes cast, which would be 5 rather than 4.
Mhm.
So I think we do not go forward with this.
And can we at least, or does it make, I mean, I guess, Jeff, this is where some input from you would help. Can we at least, or does it make any sense to make the roster of questions available? Either to you or to the public or both? I mean, I'm a little confused. Just by merely posing a question or listing the questions that the committee came up with, that would somehow expose us?
The committee didn't come up with it though, right? We
Right.
came up
Members
with
of
it
the
as individuals.
Okay, all right.
I
fair
mean,
point.
if you wanted to forward to me some questions,
Mhm.
we could certainly look at those questions as not as a committee, but
Right.
just to me. And in the course of the litigation that we're currently in, we have the ability to ask certain questions. If they're germane and they're relevant to the litigation, we could certainly ask those questions. We can get them asked, under oath and answered under oath. So, there is that other avenue, and that's the more appropriate one, and that is discovery in the litigation.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question as John, is can we forward the questions to you? And, as appropriate, you would ask them in the, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know the right terms, in the, the controlled court setting, the controlled legal proceeding setting.
I can absolutely do that. The one issue there for you is timing, of course.
Right.
Are you?
Would you be allowed to reveal the answers?
Absolutely. It's yes. If I asked an interrogatory question to Northeastern, was the sky blue on April 3rd? And they responded, yes, it was, although it was cloudy. Yeah, that's something that is absolutely, it's part of the public record, and it could absolutely be provided. Absolutely.
Right, but when you receive the questions, you receive the questions as individuals, as any
That's
question
right.
from any individual. So any individual town person could send you a question that you would ask.
Do not do that to me. Now I will be inundated.
I mean, that's what I'm
with
saying,
emails.
right? We have not as a committee, we have not as a finance committee vetted these questions.
Yeah, and Jeff Lewis's phone number is, and his email.
That is true.
Jeff Lewis doesn't charge us.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff Flynn. I'm confusing my Jeffs. I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm sorry, both
And he
Jeff.
won't give you a straight answer.
To answer your question, no, not any citizen can. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to work through here and trying to do two things at once. I'm trying to give the committee, the commission, some avenue for asking these questions. But you raise an excellent point, and that's not coming from the committee. One member is not the committee.
If I as the one member of the committee forward you the compilation of individual questions, is that okay? Or should each individual person who forwarded me the questions forward them individually to you, or does it matter?
It's the same problem, John. We haven't as a committee agreed.
He just said that as individuals, we could.
You could forward them to
Certain
me.
individuals, no?
If you forward them to me and I find them to be relevant, I could ask those questions.
Right.
There's one thing I do want to caution you on, and that is that emails amongst board members, in some circumstances, can run afoul of the open meeting law. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, but I just want to make everybody perfectly aware that the AG has found that serial emails indicating what so-and-so said, and so-and-so said, and before you know it, we have a quorum of the board on an email chain, that while going from only one member to another member, the AG has found that to be an open meeting law violation. I'm not saying you're doing it. I
Yeah,
just,
we haven't done that.
yeah, and I'm saying you have. But look, you can certainly forward me some questions, and then I can make a call as to whether or not we want to ask those during the litigation.
Thank you.
But what Judy's saying is correct.
She
We
is
would not
correct.
be forwarding them to you as the committee.
You are correct. Yep.
So this is Tony. Can I jump in, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Co-chair. So Jeff, I might add that, or I guess I could ask the committee, for those of you that have come up with questions to potentially propose to Northeastern, have you looked at existing information that's out there to see if that information already exists? And that's something that, you know, Jeff Blake, who's been involved in this process every step of the way, while reviewing your questions, might say, hey, you know, probably not a good idea to ask that question at this time, but take a look at their E&F on page 6, or take a look at this publication, you know, that might help you, might inform you to make a, to help you with how you're going to submit some type of recommendation. I only add that because of my concern. My concern is this town meeting is going to be the largest in quite a while, and your timeline is very tight. So if and I fully support the FinCom, getting information to provide, to do their job and provide the residents an informed recommendation. Some of the information that you seek may exist and may help you, come to that conclusion sooner than later. If, we have to make sure that this book gets out on time. With so many people coming to town meeting this year, and with so much on the agenda, the more we can inform people ahead of time, the better. So and even if we were talking about Coast Guard housing, I would say the same thing. I want to get you guys along the way as fast as possible, or do whatever I can to help you guys get there, so that this book can get to people's doorsteps in a timely fashion. So I guess my point was, if you get the questions to Jeff Blake, he may be able to point you in the direction of existing information that might help answer the question that you have. I don't know. Again, I don't know if those of you, I haven't seen the questions that you guys put together, but if for those of you that put them together, I don't know if you took a look at, previous publications or reports or whatever, to see if that information is already out there or not.
Tony, some of the questions, there's probably information that's revealing in the assorted documents that Northeastern has sent and letters that they've penned that kind of help answer the questions. But on another hand, to me, it feels like a lot of the questions are worth asking again, given that this has been a 2-year plus process, that, maybe the answer was given a year ago, but maybe it's not the same answer now. That's just my own personal curiosity in the context of the point that you're making.
But you might be forced to come up with a recommendation based on year-old information.
No, I'm
not. There isn't enough time to potentially get updated info.
No, I think there's at least from my perspective, I'm not saying if we do continue down the path of sending questions to Jeff and keeping them moving, that's a completely different path than our path to kind of make the recommendation and get our book finished and prepare for meeting. It's a
Yeah.
completely, yeah, I've kind of personally resigned myself to the reality that the exercise of asking and potentially getting answers to these questions is absolutely not going to happen on a timeline that's going to facilitate our recommendations. So that's a given. But I'm just saying, you know, as a committee, can we keep our questions and our voice out there? And it seems like there's a mechanism to do that potentially through feeding the questions to Jeff and then letting that kind of simmer as it will over, you know, the coming days or weeks.
I think that makes sense, and I would say you should, not that you're asking for my opinion, but I think if I were to give it, it would be to, yeah, give that to Jeff Blake, have him review it and have him submit that to their council. And he can then provide their council's response to you if they were to agree to that. So
Okay.
I would go through Jeff.
All right, so
I would like to add something. I think it's very, that we should not be discussing these questions in public in any way. And I think I understand us to be saying that. Jeff, our counsel, I think you would agree with that, correct?
I do agree with it.
And so
I do agree with it. I
if
mean,
we were going to be discussing them in any way, one, I don't think we should. But two, if we were to, I would move that we would have to move to executive session. I mean, these are not questions that in any way we should be discussing in public. But I don't think we should, period. And that's what I wanted to ask you, Jeff, and you agree, correct?
I do agree. Now, obviously, if you're down at the coffee shop as, you know, Barbara Q citizen, and you see your mother or something, and you guys start talking about this, you can certainly say, oh, you know, I'd love to know this, I'd love to know that. But the point is, as a board, going back and forth and doing official town business, I agree with you.
Thank
all
you.
right, so as an action plan, does this make sense? I will send an email to all of the committee members with Jeff Blake's email address to avoid blasting it out in front of a 50-person forum here. And you are all then free to forward your questions to Jeff for him to include as he sees fit in the legal proceedings. Does that make sense?
As citizens.
As a citizen, yes, as a citizen.
Makes sense.
What can we expect for turnaround on those?
Can I ask one more question though? When you say as a citizen, that means we really can't identify ourselves as being on the FINCOM,
Correct.
Right,
correct?
right. And then the other thing I don't understand is as a citizen, why should we expect a turnaround at all? I mean, I understand that there's things that we want to know, and I understand that things would be very, I mean, there's questions that need to be answered, all of that I get. But we are now agreed that we're going to send him questions as citizens. We're not going to debate about them. We're not going to vet them. We're not any different than anybody that lives in any other town, any other house in Nahant.
It was my intention to send my 8 questions to John, for John then to reformulate and make them the committees and forward them to whoever.
No, we can't
I
do
don't
that.
intend to send my 8 questions to the attorney of the Board of Selectmen.
No, I don't think you can do it. I don't think you can do what you just said. I don't think we can do that.
Yeah,
That would violate public meeting law.
if we do that consolidation, we have to do it in an open meeting.
And I don't think that can be done
I'm
publicly.
not going to send anything to Jeff, to the council of the Board of Selectmen and the town of Nahant and the Nahant Preservation Society.
Yeah, so just to clarify, my intent was not to take your questions, do it and reformulate them. I was taking them to compile them into a master roster of questions where if we so chose, we would have discussed them as a committee and then either yes or no adopted them as the committee's questions. So just to
But
clarify.
I was going to run them through the committee. They're not my questions. They're for us to discuss.
But
Okay.
we can't
And for-
discuss, we can't do that,
But we've decided not to.
right?
We have a hung jury.
So
It's not a- It's
basically,
not a hung jury.
Well, we don't want to proceed.
I guess we can't act here. We can't pose our questions. Is that what we want? I mean,
We
this is a
disagree
missed
about what is
opportunity.
appropriate for us to do. And particularly given what town council has advised,
Well, the town council advises the executive branch.
and us.
We fall under the town umbrella.
Yes,
We
sir.
don't act as an independent committee, independent of the town.
Exactly.
We're not,
And we're not elected.
we've already apparently made a non-decision here to be silent, and it's just a little frustrating. But I understand the other side too, so.
We've been very vocal tonight. We have not been silent. We've been very vocal.
But Julie, we have been silenced from talking to any representative Northeastern.
You as a citizen can ask whatever questions you want, but not on behalf of the FinCom.
Yeah, I mean, I think to clarify the committee voted under Robert's rules not to proceed. But Dana, you as a citizen are absolutely free to ring up Jeff Trussell or Ralph Martin or anyone that you choose.
You know, is that a realistic, avenue to pursue? I mean, they won't even take my call.
I mean,
I'm not gonna make decisions based on old information or information that's been put out, attorney to attorney letters. It's
But
not
you
helpful.
can't,
Right, and
you
that's
cannot,
exactly why Jeff Blake is. Anyway, go ahead.
right, you cannot represent, you can't do that as a member of the committee. That's what you can't do.
And just technically, Mr. Chairman, you polled the committee there. If you want to make that an official vote, you need a motion, a second, and a roll call.
Yeah, I was careful to do it as a sense of the
Yeah.
committee. But just to put this to bed, to move on, is there a motion?
there is a motion.
And I second.
All right, and so the motion is not to proceed. So a yay vote will be not to proceed, and a no vote would be to proceed. So it's kind of exactly the opposite of the intended effect.
Now, let's be careful. Let's clarify that again, Bob, with just one.
Why don't you frame it in the affirmative?
Or yeah, exactly.
Move to move forward and speak with Northeastern.
Well, that vote may not, or that motion
No.
may not come from Judy then.
Right.
No, it's not going to come from me.
And I won't second that.
So is there a motion?
There is a motion to not move forward.
And I second that.
All right. So is everyone clear about the way they're voting? The motion is not to move forward. If
So
you
if you
vote
agree,
yes,
you
you are
agree not
voting
to move
for,
forward.
you are voting not to move forward. If you vote no, you are voting to move forward.
So double negative means yes, go forward with questions with Northeastern.
If you vote no, you are voting to proceed with questions to Northeastern.
Okay.
All right, and I'm going to do a roll call vote, just again in the order in which people appear in my Zoom window. Dana?
I guess I'm voting no, because I want to do questions with Northeastern.
All right, Vanderslice is next. I'm voting yes because I don't want to proceed. Julie?
Yes, I do not want to proceed.
It sounds very odd to say that, doesn't it, John?
No, I do want to proceed.
Oh dear, Jeff Lewis.
No, I do want to proceed.
Who's next? DeWitt. Billy,
You're on mute.
DeWitt, you're on mute.
No,
Judy,
Hold on, I lost my place. I'm voting yes, I do not want to proceed.
got it. Barbara,
I'm voting yes, I do not want to proceed.
all right, so same results as the sense of the committee vote. Again, under Robert's rules, to carry a motion, I gotta think about it.
You need a majority.
Majority.
You
We
need
don't
a
have it.
majority.
Right, the motion fails then.
So the motion fails. Do we have another motion then? Jeff, you were right in the first place there.
We're gonna have two failed motions, I guess.
No,
All right, I'll make a motion to proceed with financially related questions to Northeastern in a written format.
I second that.
all right, so this time the roll call, is this going to get us anywhere?
No,
You're
No.
gonna end up with the same.
No.
But we'll have done due diligence.
we're gonna wind up in the same spot, right?
We're
Right.
gonna end up with a 4-4 vote. The motion is different. The
Still
motion
not gonna
to
carry.
proceed.
Right.
So the motion to proceed would be voted down.
Well, we're in the middle of a vote here, so
Yep.
let's complete it.
So let's roll call.
All right, so roll call. And just to be clear, this is a motion to proceed. So a yes vote is you want to proceed. This is the intuitive way to think about it. Yes, you want to proceed. A no vote is not to proceed. Dana,
Yes.
Vanderslice, no. Tarmy,
No,
you sure? Yes, you are sure. No.
okay.
John,
Yes.
Jeff Lewis,
Yes.
DeWitt,
yes,
Judy,
No,
and Barbara.
No,
I hate even numbered committees. All right, so the motion was what? The motion was to proceed. So the motion to proceed fails. And
You don't proceed.
we don't proceed because that's that is the most recent motion on the floor. Yes?
Frustrating.
Did I do my Robert's rules right?
Mhm.
I think so. All right, so we are not, we're back to where we were a second ago. So you're free to, I'm going to send out Jeff Blake's email to the committee. You can forward your questions to him or not as you see fit. You're certainly welcome to contact Northeastern as private citizens as well.
So just to be clear on that point, Bob, as residents of Nahant, voters in Nahant, not as members of the committee, we're left to our own devices and calls or emails to try to get information about Northeastern's commitment on pilot, for example. And I guess that's where we're gonna go.
well, even you've got the same problem. Every citizen has the same problem. What you're asking for is information that no one has. We should get it from the selectmen. I mean, the selectmen are the people that's supposed to be working with Northeastern.
that's correct.
Right, but the selectmen are on one side of a lawsuit.
Exactly, that's part of the point.
We got, listen, the selectmen are our elected representatives. We have to believe that the selectmen are working in our best interests. If not, then we need to elect them out.
Right, I may agree with that, Judy, but right now the selectmen are not talking to Northeastern, so we don't have any recent information really.
But do we know that that's true.
Well, it sounds as if, according to Jeff, that there are ongoing discussions with the lawsuit you've been mentioning.
Are you talking about Jeff Blake?
You, yes, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm, at this point, I don't believe there are any ongoing.
I shouldn't have asked that. I want to delete that question.
But certainly, as you can see from the back and forth in the public eye, there is at least a hint of a mediation. And both sides are asking if the other side will go to mediation. Mediation is a discussion.
Okay, but Julie, please delete my question.
All right, so
Moving on.
Thank you.
let's move on. And moving on is not, good night, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you.
All right, so we are left with the two eminent domain related articles, which are what, 21V, which is part of the community preservation article. And that one is the one that funds a portion of the potential eminent domain taking, the CPC portion of the eminent domain taking. And Article 22, which authorizes, but it doesn't require, it simply authorizes the selectmen to begin an eminent domain taking under certain conditions. And those conditions are that the town has to have $3 million in donations in guaranteed funds. The eminent domain proceeding has to proceed under the Section 80A process. So that, I think that it makes sense to me to discuss both of these articles together because they really are inextricably joined at the hip. And I would suggest that the way we do it is kind of, or at least start by trying to organize our conversation into the topics that we might include in our recommendation. So my mental outline right now of what that recommendation would be, there would be a section of it that talks about the selectmen's plan and the current situation. There would be a section of it that talks about the funding portion of eminent domain. So where are the money going to come from, and how much from the various sources, and any of the associated stuff around the funding. So there's probably a conversation about CPC and how much of the CPC gets consumed. Then we would move on to a discussion of the eminent domain budget. So where is that money going to go? How is it going to be allocated? Any of the risks associated with that? And then a conversation about the ADA, which is very hard to say out loud, process and how that works. Although my suggestion about writing our recommendation is that we stay pretty well clear of a legal description of the eminent domain proceedings and how they work. We should try to focus primarily on managerial, if there is such a word in this, but the managerial and the financial aspects of this thing. Is that okay as a way to proceed with this conversation?
Looks good to me, the outline.
Yeah.
Can I put this in my wording, Bob, and tell me whether I'm out in left field?
Go ahead.
I'm looking at Article 21. In Article 21, I'm thinking in my head, if the town voters say, hey, let's go out and do eminent domain, what's the best way of funding it? And this Article 21 is outlining for me how they planned on funding it through the CPC. And they're putting stops in it. How much is going through in borrowing, how much is going through contribution, if you will. It does not break it down into the town's pound of flesh, or how much is the state's pound of flesh, or how much is the individual contributor. But this, 21 to me is just, if the other article passes, is this the best way of funding it? Would that be
Yeah, you
framing the
absolutely-
question?
Yeah, absolutely spot on. So let's start the conversation with talking about the funding portion of it. But Jeff, I think you're pretty well spot on. 21V is $1.5 million in CPC borrowing to be spent on eminent domain and cannot be spent on anything else. And 21V, I also, yeah, okay, so section 2 in 21V specifies that there has to be the receipt or the guaranteed funds of $3 million in donations before you can borrow. And what I'm doing is sort of mentally coming back with what I think our recommendation has to disclose. Again, I see our recommendation not as an expository piece for either side, but more a statement of the facts or a statement of the situation to inform the town voters so that they can make a decision on their own. They can make an informed decision on their own. Right. So Jeff, you laid it out really well. It's $1.5 million. It's actually a really good leverage of the taxpayer's dollar. They get back like more than 3 times every dollar that they spend, either as a state match of the CPC funds or as donations.
Bob, could you run that by me again, please?
Okay. Well, okay. So in the recommendation, I am envisioning just a simple table that says, here's where the funds are coming from. $3 million is coming from donations. $1.5 million is coming from the CPC. And of that $1.5 million, the town share, the taxpayer share would be $1 million, and the state match would be $500,000.
That's a little,
Hang on. Assuming a 50% match.
right.
And I would also anticipate disclosing in there the worst case being assuming the state match dried up completely.
Yeah, I just would, put it out there that the $1.5 million is gonna be paid back with $1 million in interest roughly.
Yep.
So any state match is gonna be nullified by that interest.
Well, yes, but the state match applies to the interest as well. But yeah, you're right. The chart I have in my head has an interest column in it as well, so that we would strike a total that is, when all is said and done,
Yeah,
it's
everything
gonna
is
be like
excessive.
5 million or something
I
rather
just
than,
want to put it out there.
yeah.
When we talk about the state match, we need to put it in the context of the interest paid on the $1.5 million borrowing paid over 30 years.
Yep.
Thank you.
I got knocked off the air.
Okay, well, you're back.
Yeah, my internet just blew up.
Really? Wow.
You all stopped moving and then you stopped talking.
If it were only that easy in real life, huh?
Did I miss anything?
Well,
Nothing important.
no. It was important because, the conversation was how we were going to present or disclosed it in the funding in the recommendation. And Dana was saying, I think Dana was saying, you'll correct me if I got this in wrong, but, we also need to disclose worst case. So worst case being that the state match dries up. And we need to disclose the interest on that borrowing over the life of the borrowing.
Right. Bob, I wasn't saying that the state match is going to dry up. As long as real estate's bought and sold every year, and as long as we collect those at 3% surtax, the money's going to be there. I was just talking about the interest.
Okay.
Am I correct that it's 50,000 a year times 30?
It's a declining balance per year. And there's a schedule of it.
Right, there's a schedule, but I was just doing it by 30 years, but no, you're right.
Yeah, it starts big and it
That's
ends up small, but it kind of averages out to about 4 years. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. Total interest is going to be $1 million at 4%.
Oh, then I had it wrong. I was doing the total without the match and all of that.
Yeah, I think the total interest is a little less than $1 million, but in that ballpark.
Yeah, go out to bankrate.com and use one of the calculators.
Yeah,
No,
I-
I'm using,
match.
I was using this schedule, which is from Bond Council. One of the things I found is we need to be consistent in the sources we use for this, because, different numbers floating around just cause questions. Okay. Any more commentary on the funding side of it? Concerns, risks?
Last year, Dana, and you sort of modified it, Bob. There was a risk analysis included in the, Dana, did you talk about that while I was blown off the air? Or?
No, Jeff, we haven't got to that yet. I mean, I still have it. We can dust it off and see where we land as a committee, I guess.
But at least this aspect, I think in my head, I've got it outlined.
Yeah. As far as structure, I'm thinking that we would include the risks in each of those sections. So, now would be the time to talk about any risks associated with funding. And
One of the, not one of the risks, but one of the consequences of, using this significant chunk of money from the CPC fund is, much as Lynn emphasized, I think maybe she didn't emphasize it, but in our discussions with her, it was emphasized that this will inevitably have the effect of crowding out
Any further development.
small CPC projects that maybe had been funded in the past. So I think we should acknowledge that in the, I guess it's in the risk or consequences section.
okay, so yeah, so it would be in the discussion of CPC. And I'm not sure I like the wording of crowding out all small projects or something like that.
Not all, some.
But I think what may be more useful is to say, look, an average of whatever the number turns out to be of the CPC funds per year will be available for other projects.
And that it is less than it would be if.
That it will be significantly less than it would be without carrying the interest and carrying the borrowing of $1.5 million.
Yep. Yeah, the million and a half consumes availability.
Right, and
And you're left with whatever that number, whatever that average per year number.
in this method of financing too, it takes away the leverage and the matching funds, the effect, it greatly diminishes the effect of the state matching funds. Because you're paying interest over 30 years on $1.5 million.
I'm not sure I agree with that, because the state match applies to interest as well.
Well, could you,
I thought the state match was based on the 3%. If
3% property tax.
Well, it's
like 60 cents on the dollar is the state match. So if you look at $1.5 million borrowing, gonna pay back $2.5 million. And you can see that the 60 cents on the dollar is pretty much, it's diminished greatly by the interest on the loan.
well, it's still 60 cents on the dollar principal and 60 cents on the dollar interest. It's not,
Right, but it's the effect of the leverage of,
yeah, it reduces your overall leverage, but you're still left with greater than 3-time leverage when you consider both the state match and the.
right.
But
But
okay,
the financial effect is diminished.
yeah, all right, so, yeah, so I'll lay it out on the table and you can look at the draft. But what I've got in mind pretty clearly lays out, look, here's the principal amount, here's the interest amount, and here's the grand total amount when you're said and done. And then it'll break it out between state match and town portion, taxpayer portion.
Actually, the state match is it's a variable, so it's gonna have to be, treated with a range somehow so that the people at the town meeting can understand. Because what's 60 cents on the dollar this year might be something more or less next year.
I absolutely agree with your concept. I'm worried about how do you put that into a simple form in what has to be a fairly terse recommendation if we're not going to go on to 20 pages.
No, yeah, I agree with that, Bob. We want to try to keep it simple so that people can understand it. And
So, yeah, so what I was suggesting was let's show it at 50%, which is actually less than the experience to date, and show it at, my thought was show it at 0, but if we want to show it at, 20% or something other than 50, that would work too.
or maybe not show it at all.
Well, I think you got to show it. I mean, that's,
Yeah, it showed in the community preservation article itself.
And Spencer's here.
I am.
It's just, I don't know if this is out of form or just it's an in your opinion type of question. Basically the impact that Bob's talking about on cash flow coming forward. But most people come directly to you for who wants to do who wants to do what. Any insight you might provide us on how it's going to impact the day-to-day over at the CPC?
Well, thank you, Jeff. Can everyone hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So this is something that our committee has considered and wrestled with, quite honestly, because we're not only looking at the $1.5 million bond, we are already carrying a bond for the library, and we're proposing an aggregate bond to benefit three historic properties owned by the town of Nahant, the town hall, the public library, and the Green Lawn Cemetery archway and walls. I would point out that in the last 5 years, significant amounts of money have been invested in recreational resources in Nahant, as well as historic preservation and open space. Sorry, I hope I'm not the one making that weird noise in the background. So I would say that, yes, we will have less sort of, general funds to distribute. And in fact, Jeff, in fiscal year 23, the impact would be significant. But the good news is that our committee has a significant general reserve as well. So that offers us the flexibility to address, incoming projects and issues. So I don't know if that's not a direct answer. It's simply to say that we are aware that we will have less money, but we have reserves that will help us next year. And we can see, in fact, the really positive benefits of taking care of our historic buildings, taking care of our recreational opportunities, and most of all, taking care of protecting the open space in Nahant, which is what 21V is all about.
Well, if there is an impact, they'll be lining up with picket signs in front of your office, not ours.
Well, it's some years, Jeff, if you look at the insert that I prepare for the annual report, and it records all of the activities from 2004 onwards. Some years we've had relatively few applications. Last year in fiscal year 21, we had a long list, so it varies. And so,
Yeah.
It depends on what, town administration is up to, what other departments in the town have in mind, as well as the private nonprofits in town.
Lynn,
Thank you.
are you planning to include the chart that shows the available funds by year in your document?
I have a big note to say, yes, I can include that. I'd like to do that. I was really hoping to have the conversation with FINCOM about this, because I feel like there's a mutual statement that needs to be, could be crafted for that. Otherwise, I have completed my long annual report, except for that last piece, this 30-year flow chart.
Okay, I think that 30-year chart needs to be in the FinCom book someplace, somehow, but should not be part of the recommendation itself, just, because of space and readability.
Right. It can be in the appendix. And like I said, Bob, I wanted to do it in consultation with FinCom. So where you think it makes sense, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Bob, can I get in on that?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you. Lynn, can you provide us with a range? I mean, 30 years of experience is invaluable for us, but just a range of the state match over 30 years, the low and the high, and the average?
Our average, I can do it because I was working it on Sunday, so it's right on my head. Our average is 65%. The high was 100% match, which we enjoyed in the early years. But as more states and cities and towns have entered, the formulas have changed. So 65 is our solid average.
Okay.
And what's the low? I'm sorry.
That's really mean, Bob. But I think a low is about 40%.
So maybe some kind of moving average over the last, say, 7 years or something of the average.
Well, if you want to use the average over 7 years, I can do that for you. I can't do it off the top of my head because I averaged the whole thing.
That might
But
be, it's all these are all variables. So,
sure.
How long has CPC been around?
We passed it in 2004. The first year of funding being available was 2005.
Okay, longer than I thought. Time flies when you're getting old.
And you know what? I have been the continuous thread. I am ancient on this committee, so yes.
The golden thread that binds.
Well, thank you. I'll take that, Dana. I'll take that.
Okay. Another risk that has been raised in regards to funding is that the $3 million donations will not materialize. And as I read the articles, that it becomes a non-risk. That risk has been completely taken off the table because the articles very clearly specify that that money has to be, has to be there before we can borrow. And in the second article, in Article 22, before we could proceed with eminent domain. So that to me, we need to, mention that it has been a concern, but it's now no longer a concern because of, because that's a restriction that's in the article itself.
And to couple that too, Bob, with the risk that the courts decide that the 3 million or whatever is not enough.
Yeah, but well, yes, you're absolutely right, but let's hold that conversation till we start talking about the expense side of this. I'm trying to kind of keep the conversation organized and keep it in the context of how the recommendation will be written.
No, Bob, we're tough to corral.
I know. I'm trying to do it very politely if I can.
Well done, really well done.
All right. Okay, so enough on funding? More questions, comments, concerns? John, you've been quiet on this one.
When does the 3 million really show up?
I mean, I don't know the practical answer to that, but it has to show up before anybody can do anything, before anybody can borrow, and before anybody can initiate a taking. But
That's a big question.
I don't think that's our question. I mean, I
That's
think.
also true.
Pardon me?
True.
Right.
okay.
Yeah, I'm okay moving on from funding.
All right, so let's move on to the other side, the expenses. So, basically what happens is, Article 22 essentially appropriates $4.5 million to be spent, potentially be spent. It doesn't require, but authorizes the selectmen, but doesn't require them to spend $4.5 million on an eminent domain taking. The restriction in the article, well, there's a couple of restrictions in the article, but the one that's related to, well, it's really related to funding, but we talked about it before. They have to have $3 million in donations before they can go on. And that $4.5 million covers both the cost of the taking, or the valuation of the land, or the easement rather, and any legal expenses. So in my head, there's also just a chart, or like an income statement or financial analysis sort of a presentation, Excel spreadsheet or whatever you want to call it. It says, look, here's the budget for the eminent domain. And the budget is, according to the selectmen, $2 million for the value of the easement, $500,000 in legal fees, $2 million in contingency funds, totaling $4.5 million. And then I think our commentary, or the risks associated with that, are the land valuation itself. So we would say the selectmen have gotten their land valuation from 2 different appraisers, And they've been consistent at $180,000 to $200,000 an acre. And when they came up with that, they took into account any of Northeastern's possible objections. We may mention that valuation is limited, or it is what it is, because the land is zoned as conservation land, meaning it can't be developed by anybody other than somebody like Northeastern who can claim Dover Amendment protection. And then as far as legal fees, we simply say, look, the legal fee estimate was provided by eminent domain attorneys.
So backing up for a minute, Bob. What are you suggesting that we put down for the valuation of the taking?
Well, I'm suggesting we say the selectmen's budget is $2 million for the value of the taking, $500,000 in legal fees, $2 million in contingency funds.
Right.
Right. And then they're getting their value from the two appraisers. And what I was about to bring up next is kind of the live wire here is, there's been all sorts of stuff floating around about about an unexpectedly large valuation from the group.
Yeah, I mean, there are cases out there. For example, well, I'll go through the sliding them, but it could go as high as, I believe, $905,000 an acre.
Okay, so
But
we have to ask before we throw numbers like that out there.
Sure, but
Where
wait a
does that
second.
figure come from?
Right. Hold on.
And why do we think that figure is appropriate
second.
or comparable?
There's a case. Well, let's just say that the $905,000 an acre is based on conservation land bought from Boston College by the city of Newton last year, or was it 2019? So that's certainly a possible number. But however, we have assurances from the Board of Selectmen that we're capped at $1.5 million of CPC funds. So the risk really is that somehow the town doesn't have the money to do the eminent domain, and the town decides that, well, let's go back to those private funders, and there's not enough money to do it.
Mhm.
Say the town is short $1 million or $2 million, and they call a special town meeting and ask for more. So that's kind of like the context of the risk and on the price. But I think I'm fair. I feel good going forward with what they've said, that they're not going to go any more than this $1.5 million.
Okay, and we're straying into a slightly different topic, but the ADA process that's specified in the article allows the town to back out, to withdraw from the eminent domain proceeding at any time for any reason. So, worst comes to worst, the town backs out, and we're not on the hook for the value of the land. So that should be mentioned as well.
Right, and the cost of that as well need to be detailed. For
Yeah.
example, the law states that all costs will be borne by the town, Northeastern's costs.
Well,
So that could add up.
yeah, the law states that expenses are to be borne by the town. I think according to the attorneys, it's still somewhat of an open question as to whether we would pay their legal fees or not.
Right, and we end up back in the courts to decide that.
Yeah.
So it could be high, it could be as high as over $1 million. When we count our legal fees and Northeastern's legal fees, and they're all their costs.
Yeah. But I'm going in a little different direction. I think it's important to point out that when people start to throw out cases that appear comparable, you really have to be careful. Like the Newton case, that the Newton land is not zoned as conservation land. It can be developed.
Right.
Right. So
They bought it as conservation land. So
they bought it to make it conservation land, but it is not conservation land.
Right.
right? So
I mean,
the
we agree.
valuation is reflecting the valuation as if it were to be developed, its highest and best use at the time you purchase it.
So we're saying that $905,000 an acre is impossible? No, we're not. We're saying it's possible. So it could be much more than $200,000 an acre or something.
Yeah, but we're saying 905 is possible in that situation, but that's not our situation.
I mean, when you mean, so I understand what you're saying. There's an opportunity. It could be less. We haven't anything to say that it's concrete, right? That's true. But if we go to the highest number, we also then need to say it could be the lowest number. Because we need to give a fair balance on that.
Yes. Yes. So I'm trying to say that by saying, look, the appraisers think it's this. And there's been other numbers that have been floated around out there, including by Northeastern as a scary number in a couple of their letters referencing this Newton situation. But you really have to be careful about that to, make sure you're talking about a comparable situation.
Right, Bob, I agree. I think maybe we don't even need to go there because we know that $1.5 million is going to be borrowed. And if the matching gifts to the town are 3 million, if it exceeds that by a large amount, we might have to the town might have to opt out with ADA. And then it reverts to the cost of the ADA, which are the Northeastern costs and the town's legal costs of declining the ADA. So we don't need to go up with a higher number.
Okay. All right. That's easy. It's less to write.
What does the rest of the committee think? I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think that point of if the $4.5 million isn't enough and the price is higher and we decide to exit ADA, then we're responsible for the fees from the 3-member panel, the commissioners that made the decision, and then seemingly, potentially, some other fees that Northeastern has. And that's the risk that money is kind of, I don't want to say squandered, but is spent and we don't end up with the conservation restriction that was our intent. So that's the risk.
That will be borne by the town.
Correct.
And it will not occur from the
No,
gifts of 3 million.
No, I don't think that's not true. From what we've been told, it will be one big common pool of money that will be utilized, as a common pool. So I think the way to think about it, as far as I'm understanding it, and maybe this needs to be in a recommendation, that if we were to kind of have to pay that exit fee, 33% of it would be the towns and 66% of it would be the private donors. Does that make sense?
I think that should be stated.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested, I went back into the Warren Group's database for the last 20 years, back to 1991. And the entire Northeastern campus is 20.42 acres. And the highest value has been 3,421,300. That was 2021's assessed value, which is like $170,000 an acre. What did you say they're valuing it at, Bob?
It's between $180,000 to $200,000 an acre.
So they're estimating a premium over the assessed value. And that's for the entire 20.42 acres. What we're acquiring is substantially less.
And that's for land that is, prime urban developable land. I mean, that's totally not comparable.
No, the report from the Warren Group, it's all natural resource land.
Oh, it's not the downtown?
No, this is the
No,
Nahant's property.
He's speaking to the Nahant property,
Oh,
not the
I'm
Newton
sorry.
property.
Right, got it. Yep.
I was just curious as to what What was it assessed at for the last 20 years? Actually, 30 years.
I mean, I feel comfortable saying that the 1.87 million is, you know, it's going to be higher than that. I mean, if you look at all the cases out there, they split the difference somehow. The arbitrators try to do that, and the 1.87 million is on the low end, but it doesn't really matter to what we're trying to accomplish, which is there's $1.5 million of borrowing, and that's as far as it goes with this article.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. Enough. It seems like we're running out of gas on the expense side of the conversation.
Legal fees,
Legal fees. Okay.
I got a range here of 400,000 to 725,000 for Nahant.
And the 725, I assume, is from the Newton case.
Yeah. That's what the city of Newton appropriated for legal fees. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's just it's an estimate. It's a range, and we can assume that Northeastern legal fees are going to be similar to that. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. Our attorneys are saying $500,000. So.
Right. And there's no cap on that. That's a variable cost that.
Yeah, that is what it is.
Right.
Okay. All right. I was thinking of including a section in there about the ADA process, and not to describe the ADA process in detail, but to speak to how the ADA process, I defy anybody to say that 5 times fast. How that process allows the town to back out, and how that mitigates a lot of the risk. At one of these earlier meetings, Ken was drawing flowcharts as we spoke, and I think the flowchart is actually a good idea to depict the process. So
I agree. I thought that's very helpful for to ease understanding.
yeah, so I was working on a version of what Ken had started, so I think that we would include something like that as well. So the ATA section would be a discussion of being allowed to withdraw and how that protects the town, and the flow chart that depicts what the process looks like. And like I said, I would personally try to steer well clear of anything more detailed than that, and refer folks to the eminent domain question and answer stuff that's on the town website.
Make sure though, please, that the flow chart gets checked by our lawyer, because as I recall, there was a point at which it didn't quite fit the procedure. There was another layer. So make sure that that gets checked, please.
Okay.
It was helpful, but we need to.
All right. Let's see. I was also, I'm looking at my notes here, it's a little scattered, going to include a section about the projected cost to the town, and try to stay clear of all the nonsense that's been circulating here, there, and elsewhere. So just say, look, the town FinCom did a projection. It got to a point where it was revealing some large numbers, and the issue was getting controversial. And Judy, to her everlasting credit, suggested that we get a second opinion, which is the RKG report. and then just present a summary of the RKG report. Look, here's the low range, here's the medium range, here's the high range. Here are the key assumptions that go behind it. Boom. If you want to learn more, go read the RKG report, but not try to get into reconciling anything to anything. Just here's the results of the RKG report in summary format, period, the end.
So as I was putting together my kind of composite of PDFs, I had the RKG report as one of them to potentially add.
Good, yes. Yep.
You're saying I should or should not do that?
No, should, absolutely should, I think.
I want to pose that for the reasons that the RKG report doesn't really have a correlation to actual budget line items in the budget. Budgets grow organically over time. So we know that there's going to be a cost hosting Northeastern in town, but the numbers on the report are not helpful to the town meeting. People know what it's going to cost to do the eminent domain. The costs associated with this report are somewhat misleading. It's not helpful.
Well, I don't know, Tony or Dana, I respectfully disagree with you. First of all, the numbers in the RKG report absolutely come from the town's financial statements. They are based on 2019 actuals, and they are directly related to line items. They tie back absolutely one for one, and the thing reconciles to the total appropriation. And it includes the Prop 2.5. So it inflates 2.5% every year to reflect that. What it doesn't include are things like, well, what if there's a permanent override that occurs someplace out in the future? So it would not, it's low by any permanent overrides that might occur, but you can't really kind of assume those in there.
Right. I just don't know if it's going to be helpful for what we're trying to accomplish here. The RKG report is an interesting exercise in per capita analysis, but we know that when people work in a town, they don't use the same services. It's in the report. Read the report, the RKG report. It argues both sides. And it's a way to look at it, this per capita analysis, but it's not actual budget items.
I respectfully disagree as well. I read the report carefully, and I think it does provide helpful information that the town needs to think about, because it's information about how it'll affect our finances, and that's our advisory job. So I would also, with due respect, think that we should include it.
I agree. I
Yeah.
think it shows that we've done as a finance committee exactly what we
Right.
tasked to do. It shows that we've looked at the financial impact from many sides, and it shows that we've done our due diligence.
I agree.
But I do side with Dana in that, well, I'm kind of on both sides. I think including it is okay, but I think having a healthy list of qualifiers that are reasonable qualifiers is something we should add too. I mean, Dana's point about, the calculation is pretty objective and pretty straightforward, but if you kind of start then really thinking about what the numbers reflect, you can kind of start scratching your head. I mean, you could have Northeastern say, we're going to have our own coastal institute safety and fire, like it'd be cheaper for them to kind of say, we don't need the town for that, we'll take care of that on our own. If they were to kind of rationalize themselves the RKG per capita basis, you get into issues about, Dana's point, they don't live here 24 hours a day. So do you need to make some adjustment to your per capita allocation? So I think, all these things are things that we can tactfully qualify, but still include the report.
Actually qualify, but still include the report, please.
I think you guys know my nightmare. I think the report has to be included because I still believe it's possible to win this eminent domain thing, and Northeastern still goes forward. And it's still going to put pressure on this town's finances in the coming years if they do.
Yeah, that's a real risk, Jeff. I mean, I'd go along with that. I mean,
Yeah, but
going back to the RKG report one more time. In the report itself, they talk about proration and the per capita analysis. And they argue against that on page 6. So I encourage the committee to read page 6.
all right, I will carefully read page 6. I think that, to me, the point of the RKG report and the conclusion I get from it is not that, you know, it's going to cost us exactly this or cost us this narrow range, but this thing is going to cost the town a ton of money.
Yes.
And that's kind of the value of it. And we can quibble about, you know, whether per capita is right or not, or this or that, or, you know, but it's multi-millions of dollars. It's not. All right, but I take the point. Include the results with some caveats. All right, the last section was a description of what the selectmen's plan is and the current situation. So this is actually what we had discussed earlier in the evening. So it's the selectmen are looking for a negotiated solution. They believe that this authorization for eminent domain is going to give the town negotiating leverage where right now there basically is no negotiating leverage.
Bob, if I may,
Go ahead.
going back to the costs, there's another variable that we should think about as a committee, which is the community benefits or the payment in lieu of taxes that's been put out there. I mean, this is something we can assume is going to be, you know, not available if we go through with this eminent domain. And, you know, it's $6 million. You can't just ignore it. So.
Right, I was about to get to the $6 million. Actually.
All right, okay, thank you.
Okay, so, you know, that description, the selectmen's plan, negotiated solution, negotiating leverage, the statement that there have been several attempts to negotiate, but haven't gone anywhere to date. And then $6 million, wait, where did we put the $6 million? Oh, the $6 million we put in the projected cost to the town. Right, so there, I do have an item in my outline here. So we say, you know, that the town's off, sorry, the town is offered to pay the town. Northeastern is offered to pay the town $6 million over 40 years with conditions. And the conditions are that the town not oppose their development project and that the town grant all of the required permits.
One thing.
Go ahead.
The most recent communication on this, the community benefits, they're not specific about the number of years. So the 40 years, we don't know.
Okay, well, is Tony still with us? Tony, are you there?
I am.
Is
I'm
Tony
here.
still on the call, right?
Yeah, I'm still on the call.
You may not be with us, but you're on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Northeastern's offered the latest thing. Well, let me pose it as a question. What is the latest written that we have from Northeastern, if anything written?
What is the latest? Say that again. The latest what?
What are the terms of the latest offer that we've gotten from Northeastern?
Oh, well, you know, that was quite some time ago. And it was $6 million continued with the scholarships, continue with the money to the school. The length of time was, we never got it in writing, but originally the length of time that 6 million was spread out was a concern but from folks. So we did, start a conversation with Northeastern about shortening that up to, just a couple of years. They were open to it, but we never really got, a final comment on that. And there was a ton of other things in there about programming, maintenance of the property, maintaining our property. Let's see.
Did it did include the provision that we did not oppose their project and that we gave them all the required permits?
Well, yeah, it's a mitigation agreement based on them proceeding with their project. Yeah.
Okay.
There was other stuff too, like about, coastal sustainability, climate change, projects, any type of that benefit that they would be exploring with the purpose of their school or research facility would benefit the town of Nahant first. So there was discounted tuition for town employees. So there was like a lot of stuff that was in there that, doesn't, isn't directly, it goes kind of extends beyond the 6 million. But that was quite some time ago. We haven't had any conversations with Northeastern about that in, certainly not in the last year.
And I seem to remember there was a provision that we would not sue them either.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that was in that, but if that was definitely in that, but it sounds right. I mean, I wouldn't expect that they would agree to it if we would potentially sue them later.
All right. So I think what we need to say is at 6 million. It's not entirely clear because it was never put in writing and we've never seen it.
They put something out. That's when, when Dana asked that question earlier, I was about wanting to send something over to Northeastern. Like, that's what I mean. And Jeff brought it up that there was Northeastern released something that somewhat explained. And then I, under the previous Board of Selectmen at a Board of Selectmen meeting, spoke about it publicly. So there is, old conversations from that time, either in meeting minutes or in a publication by Northeastern. Now, I don't know though, that, like I said, a lot of stuff has occurred since then. So I don't know. It's old information, but it does exist.
All right. So maybe we just need to say that it's a $6 million offer. It's old information, but our best understanding is boom, 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 boom.
It's
Well,
an
we don't
offer
know if
made.
that offer still stands. Well, we can't say that that's a legitimate, we can say that offer had been made, but we have no idea whether or not that they would still follow it.
It was made on January 25th, 2021, and it offered the town of Nahant $6 million in community benefits. And there's various sewer upgrades, annual contributions. I can go on and list the things.
The other big one too that I forgot about was the lobster hatchery too. There was a piece in there about renourishing any type of negative impacts that would potentially be caused by the upgraded intake system by remediating that through some type of hatchery for lobsters. So there was a piece
Yeah,
of that too.
But I don't think we can call a PR piece, a PR brochure, a formal offer to the town. I'd prefer to stick to something.
I
you know,
agree, I agree. I don't think
agree
their
with that.
policy counts as a formal offer either.
No, that was included in what, in the conversations that
oh.
we were having directly with Northeastern at the time. That was on the table. That was included in the package.
All right, and how long ago was it, Tony? Is it fair to say like over 2 years or over a year and a half?
It was when Richie Lombard, Enzo Baril, and T. Taylor were the selectmen.
That's over 3 years ago.
So 3 years ago.
My first year.
All right. Okay, so I will try to write something that reflects that conversation. So that's
Bob, again, I'd be very vague. I make it a short statement because something that's 3 years old is no longer, we can't talk about it as if it exists.
yeah. All right. Okay. I was also going to, yeah, I was also going to point out here in this section that the present value of $6 million over 40 years front loaded is 4.3 million. So if you want to compare present value to present value, at least they've got it. So they can compare the RKG stuff to the offer.
I would offer not to discount that. We don't know the time frame, and the offer was put out there in January this year. So we know that there's substantial community benefits, and it's $6 million is the last number.
I'm sorry, did I misunderstand? I misunderstood. I thought the
A
offer
long
was,
time ago.
I think Julie and I are saying the same thing. I think wasn't the offer 3 years ago? It wasn't January this year.
Oh, no, yeah. That's been talked about for a long time.
On their brochure in January, it was 6 million.
Right, that they had offered, but it wasn't a new offer.
They were reaffirming their old offer, I'm sure.
Yeah.
They were notifying that they made an offer. It doesn't mean that that's going to be their existing offer.
Right. But we have consistently used the 40 years because that was our understanding of what they were offering. That $6 million has driven all of the rest of our analysis. And I think we need to stick with it.
Yeah, we have no reference though, Bob, for it. Where's the reference for the 40 years?
That was what the original offer. I mean, you got to pick a number. You got to pick something. And the something we have as a consistent thread through all of this is the 40-year life.
Yeah, we don't have to pick anything. We just pick the 6 million. That's what they offered in January this year. So
I don't know if you can hear me, but this is Josh Antrim. It's important, as you noted, to make a distinction between a brochure that was mailed out and an offer to the town. So as Tony mentioned, the last offer to the town, actually, Tony, I was on the board at that time when you and Richie and excuse me, Jeff Blake met with him.
Oh, sorry, Josh.
Okay. And the offer at that time was $6 million over 40 years. So that's where the 40 years came from. I know, Tony, there were some subsequent, I think, exchanges between maybe just you and Northeastern and the possibility of changing that 40 years was discussed, but never went anywhere, I think is how I remember recalling it.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So just want to make that comment. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Any more discussion about the 6 million? All right, so that's what I'm thinking is our recommendation, or the contents of our recommendation anyway. And all of that is no matter which way we vote. So any more discussion of this? And if not, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'd like to see it first in its entirety. Not ready to vote.
Well, we're not voting
We're
necessarily.
not voting on I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Judy.
We're
You're
voting on his response. We're voting
We're
on
just-
the,
we're voting on the article.
I'm ready to move on this article.
and make a motion.
I'll make a
And-
motion to.
Well, we've got two votes. There's 21V, which is the CPC one, and 22, which is the eminent domain authorization.
Okay, 21V, I make a motion to recommend.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? And if not, we'll do a roll call vote. I do not hear anyone, any more discussions. So I'm just going to call in the name that in the order in which people appear in the Zoom window. Judy? And just to be clear, so the motion is to recommend. So a yes vote is a vote to recommend. A no vote is to, well, I can't say not recommend, but
Right.
to defeat recommending. How about that? Is that clear?
Wow.
So, Judy?
Well, now that you made that so much clearer, Bob.
I could confuse you even more if you
I
wish.
know, I think I'm pretty confused. I recommend, I vote to recommend.
All right, excellent. Vanderslice, I vote to recommend. Who's next? Julie Tarmy,
I vote to recommend.
Barbara Beatty,
I vote to recommend.
Dana Sheehan,
I vote no on the financing for eminent domain in this way.
okay. John Fulgham,
So I'll just qualify my vote before I make the vote. So one of the things we haven't talked about explicitly is, the kind of strategic advantage that voting for eminent domain could potentially give the selectmen. So I think in light of the kind of conversation that I tried to kick off, belatedly last week, I think a negotiated settlement is the way to go, and I want that to happen. I don't really believe that the concept of eminent domain is a good one, but I think that I'll make this conflicting kind of vote where I say I don't want eminent domain to happen, and I will be extremely disappointed if it does. But I will vote yes to support this article just because I feel we're kind of boxed into a corner, and this is potentially a point of leverage and a mechanism to enable a negotiation that that is more beneficial to the town and also beneficial to Northeastern. I think they deserve the right to build their institute. I think they deserve the right to even build it on or near the bunker, as long as it's done in a way that's respectful and tactful and as part of a conversation with the community in a way that there hasn't been a conversation with the community to this point. So I'm going to vote yes, but I absolutely don't want it to happen.
DeWitt Brown,
I vote no.
all right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeses, 2 nos. The motion
Did we
carried.
hear from Louis?
Did I vote yet?
You didn't.
No.
You didn't. Jeff Lewis. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I only got 7. Jeff Lewis.
Gee, I dodged that bullet, didn't I?
Bob voted for you, Jeff.
We were this
Article,
close.
Article 21 is a financing question to me. And because I believe in the way it's being funded, that's why I'm voting. The only thing that could be better is if the federal government was contributing a piece toward this. But as far as the overall structure of how you're funding it, I vote aye.
Right. So now what I said earlier is correct. So the motion carries. And Jeff Lewis, you may be onto something. If we could somehow construe this as infrastructure, we might be able to get some.
Exactly.
Well, I would like the fact that they took it and then we have to pay to get it back. That boils.
All right, Article 22, which is the eminent domain authorization article. Is there a motion?
Oh, I will move to recommend.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
All right, all in favor, and I'm gonna make sure I have everybody in this damn window, and the order has changed now. No, it hasn't. Judy Zahora is first.
Bob, hang on a second. Further discussion, please.
Oh, further sure.
As everybody can see Article 22 in front of us, we can see that we're recommending to the town that on the third line down, that we authorize the Board of Selectmen to take all of the land. And in fee simple, simply, that's not a conservation easement. That's flat out the whole northeastern part land. So it's just overly broad. And I would encourage everybody to think about that.
Yeah, I did not actually, I'm remiss because the introductory paragraph to what I'm thinking of writing would include the statement that the motion that will be made on town hall floor will restrict even further what you see in Article 22. And one of the restrictions would be to contain a detail, or at least as I understand it, would be to contain a detail of exactly what is going to be taken, both in terms of what the property is and the way, I'm not an attorney, I can't say it exactly correctly, but what rights will be acquired. And Josh, are you still here, and can you kind of speak to this one a bit?
Oh, one other thing, Bob, though, I mean, it's why, we know why they did it this way, but why have it two ways? Why have it the town authorizing the whole taking versus, more measured, which is the conservation easement?
I know this was brought up in a previous meeting when Jeff
Right.
Nick was
Right.
here, and
I understand under the ADA, it will state the exact acreage of approximately 12.5 acres.
And I think I recall from a prior meeting, I hope, please correct me if I'm wrong, that Mark Cullinan had said that there's going to be a map
Right.
with the specific areas of the taking. So it will not be what's in this article here, that the broad general nature of it, that's not what it's going to be. There's going to be a very specified map.
Right.
Am I correct on that?
Yes, I believe so.
So if
That's
that's the
correct.
case, then why is the article so broad?
I wish Jeff Blake was still on the call, but it was per his recommendation that it be left broad like this. And you're both right about the map. We met last Tuesday and the map got created, I think it was on Thursday. And the reason we didn't put that exact acreage number in there was the discrepancy between high tide mark and low tide
Right.
mark. And
Right.
it was judged safer to show it on a map rather than define an exact acreage number. So that was all from last Tuesday's BOS meeting.
I think I sent that over to
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
John and Bob.
I'm gonna share it momentarily. Well,
Pretty sure.
But here's the thing, what I don't understand is even if the map has a more narrow space, this article is very broad. So we're asking the town to vote on something that's not in the real plan.
No, the way that Jeff Blake articulated is that the article is your notice to the community that a topic is going to be brought up at town meeting for a vote. It's the motion that is the actual decision that's being made at town meeting. That's the way he explained it. So if the motion says 12.5 acres, then that's your limit. You can't, it's not what's, written in the article. But, generally speaking, your article, your motion can never extend beyond your article, right? But it can live within your article's bounds. So generally speaking, your article is more broad and your motion's more direct.
Tony, that's a good point. It's just that there's a dissonance between this article and the intent of the taking. And it's a problem of understanding and transparency, not for us, but for everybody else that's not dialed into all these technicalities of this.
It's not my point. I don't want to steal the credit from Jeff Blake.
Okay.
But
Fair enough.
I can tell you that the board of selectmen, would have preferred a more specific article because they want to be transparent about their intent. But it's advice of council that the article language be more broad, and council suggested, you can accomplish that transparency by including this map that's on your screen and by including some of the language in your supporting statement, and ultimately your motion will be specific.
Tony, this map that's up.
Reporting,
right,
just to report on the conversation.
Yeah, may I suggest something? How about in our recommendation, we will say, we will not support it unless the motion actually contains, one, a description of the property, and what's number 2?
The size?
So it's a very clear understanding of how much property we're talking about.
Yeah, so yeah, a description of the property
And the purpose.
and the purpose, right? No, yeah, and not the purpose, but the means in which the title will be taken, that it will be a conservation easement rather than total taking.
What are we showing on the screen here?
This is the map. And so would we want to refer to the existence of said map or not?
Bob, what is this?
This is,
I don't, it's not my.
I'm sure this is what Tony had forwarded us. This is the map that details
right, so here's the,
the
What
green
this is
areas.
showing is- What this is showing is the intention of the taking by the Board of Selectmen. So what you have all the way on the right there in blue is the town's existing property. Directly to the left of that, that's in green, and to the bottom of that, that's in green, is your conservation easement. And then the Canoe Beach is an access easement. So the yellow and the green are what describe the intent of the taking.
And
Question, if I may.
this would be included in the motion itself. The
Okay,
description.
hold on. I have a question about this map. This, on the bottom of the map where I see proposed conservation easement A, that's nowhere near the Murphy bunker. Is this,
Not the mother.
is that the conservation easement that's going to be taken in addition to the Murphy bunker?
Yeah, that's part of the conservation easement that would be taken with this article. Anything in yellow and green.
That's bigger than I thought, Tony.
That's a pretty big piece of property on the bottom there. And there's no plan for them to build there.
There's a parking lot that goes there.
Well, it equals out to almost 12.5 acres, which is what we've been talking about.
Yeah, I believe there's a parking lot in that lower green area.
Mhm.
This is bigger than my understanding of it. I don't know if this has been out in the town at all, but it's bigger.
12.5 acres.
Yeah, there's no building proposed in that bottom part.
There's a parking lot.
I mentioned a
proposed in that
parking lot, but you know,
Bob, if we're having discussion on this, is it possible, instead of putting forth a vote of yes or no, can you put forth the first of no recommendation?
We could, the motion on the floor is to recommend right now.
Right. So we have to finish that.
So we have to finish that one first.
we're in further discussion right now.
If I believed that we should give no recommendation, we voted on the financial piece of it. Let the voters of the town of Nahant choose. They had the opportunity to do it back in 1960, whatever. And I believe that due to the politics of the time, the FINCOM stood up and said, we go along with town management. We can't afford it right now. And I think that error in vote back then put us in the situation we're in now. And I think that the only thing of good conscience that I can do is to say, no recommendation, let the town voters decide.
You know, Jeff, I agree with you.
Just, it's not a matter of for or against. I don't want to have an impact because we've already looked at the financing of it. This is a matter of conscience. Anyway, I've spoke my piece.
Yep.
Well, I'm happy to withdraw my motion.
Was it your motion, Julie,
It
or
was
was it
it was
mine?
my motion, I believe, wasn't it? No. No, it was yours. I seconded it. Sorry.
I'm not comfortable withdrawing my motion. So I'm not sure how we should proceed.
Well, I think we vote on that. If it doesn't fly, we put up another motion.
Right.
Exactly. And, a no recommendation motion does send a message.
I like that. I'm really surprised by this map. I know that we talked about 12 acres. I didn't really understand what that meant. The different point of view, so thank you.
And Judy, this is Dana. I'm surprised by it too. This is not what I expected.
All right, well, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second, so we need to follow that through. Bob, you're on mute.
No, am I? No, I'm
Oh,
not.
no, I'm sorry. You were just talking to yourself.
Yeah, I'm struggling to try to figure out how I can get back to the view that has everybody in it.
John has to close his screen.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. That's better. All right. So I'm gonna take it in the order in which I see them in the Zoom window, which has changed. So Jeff Lewis, all right. To be clear, the motion is to recommend. So a yes vote would be to recommend. A no vote would be to defeat that. Jeff Lewis,
No,
no. Dana Sheehan,
No.
Vanderslice, yes. Julie Tarmy,
Yes,
DeWitt Brown,
No.
Judy Zahora,
No,
Barbara Beatty,
Yes,
have I missed anybody? What do we have? 1, 2,
Fulgham.
3, 4, 5. John Fogum, where did you go? You're off my list. John Fogum,
In light of Jeff's comment, I will also vote no.
1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 noes and 3 yeses. So the motion does not pass.
right.
Is
so
it-
then I make a motion that we make no recommendation, let the town decide.
second that.
Okay, discussion?
could you explain a little more about how, so I guess briefly, what our vote would mean on this?
But I vote, we know how under every warrant article, we put a recommendation or not recommendation. In this case, we put a not a recommendation, and the words that we might go through with that is that as a finance committee, we've looked at the finances and we voted therefore. This is a town decision, and it's not really up for the finance committee to determine how the town wants to move forward in this kind of way. It's a
And I think we would still include the discussion that we just had at length about the various aspects of it.
Agreed. We certainly can include all of that. I mean, however you want to say it, but I think that's it, Barbara, is just that we did vote on the financial part. This is the actual.
And
What
if
did
it
you call it,
passes,
Jeff?
we
It's not
support
a
the
moral
finance.
decision. It's something, it's not a moral decision. What'd you call it, Jeff?
Conscience,
Yeah, conscience.
It's also a policy decision, isn't it?
It is a policy decision.
Well, we don't, I mean, as a finance committee, we don't, do we vote on policy? We vote on financial.
Mhm. Well, we're a finance and advisory committee, so we have a pretty broad purview.
Yeah, and this one's hard, guys.
Well, there's a motion on the floor.
And a second.
and it's a second.
Yeah, it's been seconded, so
The one thing I would say, given that we're committed to providing information and our statement as we've discussed, we are expressing ourselves. So even if we were to make an affirmative no recommendation vote, I don't think it's a complete shirking of our responsibility. That's all I'll say.
I think we owe it to the town to vote one way or the other. You know, we're an advisory committee, so let's advise, damn it.
Okay,
All right, roll call vote. And to be clear again, the motion is to not recommend. So a yes vote is the.
is this not recommend or no
Oh, sorry,
recommendation?
no recommendation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Is no recommendation. Jeff Lewis,
Yes,
Dana Sheehan,
Yes.
Vanderslice. No. Julie Tarmy,
No,
DeWitt Brown,
Yes.
Judy Zahora,
Yes,
Barbara Beatty,
No,
I'm missing John Fulgham.
John.
Yes.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 3. The yeses have it. No recommendation. No recommendation, but with the commentary that we were discussed earlier.
I can only express my opinion. I think that the devil is in the details, and I think that we've covered a wide array of issues of conscience in this thing. And I personally believe the fault lies back in 1964. If the town says we want to go forward, I feel comfortable with the fact that we're going about financing it the right way. And I'll be able to sleep at night. But a lot of what you said, John, resonates in me. And I can live with it. I think that a well-written up explanation of the due diligence that we did in the background, both positive, pros and cons, and then let the town make that decision.
is it only in the minutes that the town would know that these were not unanimous votes?
I think that Bob was saying that in our cover letter on the book, we were gonna write a detailed explanation of the deliberation we went through on this article. Am I misconstruing you, Bob?
Well, I don't know how detailed, but certainly in the recommendation, it will be noted it was not a unanimous vote.
I think that would be helpful to include.
So I think I mean, you can go with that language if you wanted to, Bob, but I think if you detailed the count, that would be fine too. I remember in the past having a discussion with Brendan Ward where we had looked at some other towns' warrant books. And what some towns do is they put the count for every vote and they name the FinCom members who voted on each side. And on one hand, in the conversation with Brendan, we kind of thought that was a useful thing because it gives the voters some context for the opinion expressed. Nahant has been much more kind of civil in that we kind of adopt the committee recommendation as, as the committee's, the vote as the committee's recommendation. But I think in this case, if you wanted to kind of add some detail, I think it would be appropriate if it worked.
I think if you're going to do that, John, for this warrant article, you need to do it for all of them.
Yep, I agree.
So we either work one way or we work the other.
So we would include, Judy, I agree, that we would then say which ones we voted unanimously and that there were a few where it wasn't. Do you think we should do just by unanimous or not unanimous, or do you think we should include the actual vote numbers? That's something for us to decide.
John is suggesting numbers and names.
No, I'm saying.
He wasn't suggesting names.
Oh, I misunderstood.
I mean, that is one path that some communities have taken. If we do decide to go that route, I'm going to deputize somebody else to go back through every one of the votes and tell me what they were.
Right, so we do it all or none.
Yeah.
But not with names.
I'm not going back and looking through all of it.
Yeah,
No.
I'm not either.
Sorry.
So
then we just
I
say
know
that it
in
was
my
not
minutes-
unanimous.
I know in my minutes, I always put whether it's unanimous or I usually put the name of the person who voted no.
Mhm.
But that would mean going back through lots of minutes.
Yeah. I'm
Right,
not-
so I think in this case, we're served, but we're certainly served by saying it was not unanimous.
Right.
but we have to then do it for all of them.
Well, we could decide just in this situation, I guess. I mean, it's being,
We could.
I know in at least one prior year, I don't remember whether it was last year or the year before, we did say it was not a unanimous vote, but for only one article.
so there's a precedent.
So we just put not a unanimous vote.
I think I don't know if I need to move that, but I think that we should put for this article, seeing as there's a, particularly now that you say there's a precedent, that we should put that it was not unanimous.
I kind of remember that, I can't remember the exact case, Bob, but I kind of do, what could it have been? What was it? Most
I
likely?
don't, it may have been one of the wetlands ones. I remember I wrote it,
Yeah,
so that's why I know it exists. I
Right.
don't remember the specifics of it though, other than we said it was not unanimous. In
Oh.
fact, I believe there were yays, nays, and abstains.
That's the wetland.
yeah, you're right. It was the wetlands.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to come
I,
back.
I,
Yeah.
listen,
it was the wet-
Because
Yeah.
I was an abstainer.
Yeah,
I withdraw this. So I'm okay. I would agree to this article alone being just not unanimous. If that's, instead of it going back, the idea of going back through all those minutes.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah. We don't have time.
But
But if
we're
we're going to name names, we're gonna have to go back and do them.
no,
Yeah.
we're not.
Just do it, yeah, just do it, not unanimous, that's fine, that's fine.
Okay. All right, so it's getting late. We've covered all of the articles. We've covered kind of our procedural stuff, so we move on to public forum, and I'm going to start by kind of running through the chat and just seeing what's in there and trying to address it. So let's see, Ken Carangelo to everybody from
Bob, can I ask John a question while you're reading that?
okay.
John, I'm still having trouble finding the warrant article. Which warrant articles am I supposed to, what's the most current copy? It's not in that folder, is it?
no, but I sent it, I'll send it again. I'm gonna send it again tomorrow, okay? And that'll be the one that everyone should look for, either their name in red or that there's no recommendation statement. But I'll send one email with that. It'll be the only thing in it. And
Well,
how
I
about we
sent
go
you,
there?
John, I did send you my statements.
Yeah, I think I did. I just haven't incorporated those.
Okay,
But I'll do that before I send out my my update tomorrow.
or I
Well-
can just send them to you again. I mean, I don't want to keep you up.
No, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. I'm not doing it tonight
Oh,
anyway.
good.
All right, thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you, John, for all the work you're doing on this.
Oh, yes. Please.
Yeah,
No,
Yes.
you know, one of the, I won't go into the tedium of it, but one of the elements, I kind of communicated in a couple sentences to Allison, and she kind of knocked it off, and, you know, it helped me a lot, because making the PDFs of the budget
right.
Oh,
documents is kind of a pain, at least for me, but it doesn't seem
Well,
like.
thank you to Allison.
Allison has done a spectacular job with, and she produces them like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, thank you. You guys are too kind.
No,
No,
we're not.
ooh,
We're on it.
No, please, nobody's ever said that about us.
you're being
True, point
descriptive.
taken.
Oh, all right. And on that note, I'm running through the chat window for public comments here. The first is Ken Carangelo. FinCom doesn't engage. Is there anything precluding NU and citizens holding a public meeting? No. We're submitting written questions. No, you're free to contact Northeastern as a private citizen. I know you've been in contact with Jeff Trussell, so That's fine. Ken sent along minutes of a very early finance committee meeting that have some of the terms in it. It's interesting that it must be a really, really early one because
May
their offer,
2019.
yeah, their offer is $500,000 upfront and $50,000 a year for 10 years. So their offer is actually only $1 million in this one. So
Yeah. There was a, what I was trying to find, but it can't, the website doesn't have them at the moment. There was in the minutes of a selectmen's meeting that detailed the 6 million, and it was bullet points in a similar format, but I was not able to locate it during this meeting.
yeah, but anyways,
You've already decided at this point, it doesn't matter.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Now I have to get the meeting back the window back so I can read chat. Looking for the exact date. All right, so you're searching for it. And that's it in the chat window. We still have 30 people with us, so any further questions from the public? Wow. No?
We still like
to ask you a question. It's Paul Spur speaking. Can you guys hear me?
Paul, you're really, really hard to understand.
That's usually the case.
No, I mean you're fuzzy, not that your diction is poor.
Sounds like Darth Vader.
Okay, well, sorry about that, but I won't ask my question.
Well, I mean, you can try, but I'm not sure we're gonna.
I don't know why that's.
Put it in the chat, Paul.
All right, I will. Okay.
We can hear typing.
Sorry.
The pressure's on.
Okay.
Oy vey. Oops.
Paul Spurn, I'll read it for everyone. Do you think you have really engaged with the advisory aspect of your charge? I think you had a responsibility to take a stand on the policy. And I don't know, speaking for me, as I said earlier, I believe we have a responsibility to vote it up or vote it, or to recommend or not recommend. That's what we're here for.
Right, I agree.
I agree.
And the rest of the committee is silent.
Oh, we've already made our vote, Bob.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. All right. Any other questions from the? All right. A motion to adjourn is in order.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry, I don't want to get in the way of the motion to adjourn too much, except to say, we are meeting is the finance committee meeting tomorrow?
Question. If we met tomorrow, it would certainly one of the topics would be to review some early drafts.
I
That would
think
probably be a good idea.
I think it would make sense for me to send out an updated warrant with the recommendations I have and at least go through that and any opening letter content or. you
And
know,
we need to talk about the CPC articles.
Yeah,
Why do we need to talk about the CPC?
No, only whether or not we're just going to simply write how we voted or whether or not we need to write anything else. Remember? John, do you want to explain that briefly?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Did we, I don't recall if we decided whether we simply were going to say, you know, that we voted or whether or not we need to say anything more specific
In the case where we made.
for the various CPC articles. Sections.
No, I think we can make certain comments that that reflect our recommendation for multiple articles at a single time, especially for the clawbacks. You know?
Yep.
For the other ones, I think the CPC has done a great job of
Well,
writing.
the CPC's done a phenomenal job. Their
Yeah, they've
statements.
done a phenomenal job on every level, but also specifically with respect to the recommendation statement.
Oh, and their recommendation statements.
So we can maybe simply add, we agree with the committee, you know?
That would be good.
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
think John Fulgram's done a fantastic job.
Still
doing community input.
One more thing is that there is a Coast Guard committee meeting tomorrow night, so if I will come to this one when that one's done.
Somebody asked for community input also.
Yeah, you're still doing community input.
Well, we have moved on, but we haven't adjourned the meeting. So
Yeah, this is Bill Mahoney, 179 Willow Road. You listen to your meeting, you know, this map comes up all of a sudden, and people are looking at it, and all of a sudden, they can't get a handle on the map, and that changes the whole your advisory group. You should have voted. You should vote it up or down tonight, not, no decision. Going back to 1964 doesn't really make it with me. I think you're responsible for voting, and I think one of you people should bring it up again. One of the people who voted it out, according to Robert's rules, can bring it up right now. Reconsider. That's my point. Thank
You
you.
want to bring it up again, Bob?
I'm the chair. I cannot. So
Could we do that now or tomorrow?
no, now.
Now.
Do it now. We can.
Excuse me, I put something in the chat. Would you mind looking at that?
Right. Yeah, I had mentioned that
Thank you.
to Bob, that there was a question in the chat.
Excuse me, if there was a motion to reconsider, it has to come, according to Roberts, it has to come from somebody that voted for no recommendation. It can't come from somebody that.
That's right. That's
No,
right.
right.
One of you 5 people ought to
Absolutely.
vote for reconsideration.
Right.
And can somebody check me on that I voted for it, so I can't.
There was
do it.
Lewis, Ian,
And
Brown, Zohora, or Fulton would have to be one of the people to bring it up again.
or Lewis. I didn't hear Jeff's name.
Yeah, Lewis, Sheehan, Brown, Zohora, or Fulton.
So anyone want to move to reconsider?
Comfortable with my decision.
All right. So
And Annie Wattel had that question or a recommendation.
Annie Votel, may I suggest that if you have no recommendation, that you explain why you have chosen that route considering the ethical space of this so as not to confuse the public.
Ethical piece of this.
So I don't know, I think that may be directed more at those folks that voted no. It's a very rare situation. It's
I'm not sure I understand the question, just from my
I don't
perspective.
understand the question either. We had a vote, and the vote was that as the majority of this finance committee agreed that as a finance committee, even if finance and advisory, we gave the advice, we recommended and made the advice on the financials. And this is a town decision. So I'm not exactly certain why we would come back and revote this.
Annie, can you come off of mute if you're, I can't see you out there, so.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Hi, all I was suggesting is that it is rare to make no recommendation. And I think that will have people scratching their heads. And having listened to this for many hours, I'm not in disagreement with where you're coming from or anything like that, but I just think maybe somehow noting why you made no recommendation. And as you said, Jeff, there's a piece of this that is conscious, your conscience, right?
Absolutely.
So I think I'm just afraid if you don't point out the rarity of this and that why that's steering you to make no recommendation, that people that just sit and look for whatever the recommendation is of the advisory committee, finance committee will say, oh, they didn't do anything, so I guess we shouldn't do it. I'm afraid of that mistake occurring.
Oh, that
I
never
agree.
occurred to me.
Yeah, I agree.
So wait a minute, so let's talk about that for just a minute, although we were this close to going home. So are you saying that are you saying the implication is that if we make no recommendation, it means like a not recommending?
Yes,
people will-
I think there's that.
That is what I'm saying.
People will see it that way.
That's not what
Absolutely.
I meant at all.
But
I think there are many people who sit down, read the book, look for the recommendation and vote on the recommendation.
Right.
And that'll be in our comments.
That'll be, yeah, the comments are the thing for that. Thank you.
And the committee's been working on this for a while.
Oh,
And we understand how people in the town might be unhappy. We approve the financing.
I
And
have
we're leaving it to
an
the town. for
interesting,
the eminent domain.
Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not having any problem with your process. I'm simply saying that it's very rare and to make note of it, particularly when you are mentioning that this is about conscience and you are comfortable with it, I think that would be helpful. I'll take myself out.
All right, well then, give me a minute while I think about this, because it never occurred to me that a no recommendation would lead the town to believe as a not recommended.
Yes,
Well,
I think there's,
Well, that's why we'll have to remind them that in our opening letter that our charge is to do one of three things: recommend an article, make no recommendation, or not recommend. And maybe explain a little bit about what each of those, the definition of each of those things are.
I still think that it's potentially quite confusing and will be seen as,
well, somebody give me a solution. If you ask my personal vote on town meeting day, I will probably vote for eminent domain. Surprises everybody. But
No.
the fact is, I don't want my opinion. I voted my opinion on the CPC article. The way we're going about financing it is sound. It's well thought out. It's going to place some strain on the town, but I think it's the right way of going about doing it. But if you're going to ask me to sit back and impose upon my own conscience why I want to do it, no, I think each person in the town, I don't want to say it's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing. vote your conscience. That's all I had hoped to put across so that we don't influence, because we've already looked at the financial piece. Now, maybe I'm wrong for doing that.
But
Yeah,
I think
I don't know.
It
Jeff,
stands.
All right, I make a motion to revote.
I second it to reconsider. Oh, I'm not allowed to second it, am I?
Yeah, yes, you are.
Okay, I second it. Jeff, I do think that people are going to think very likely that that is a negative. And I do think it's our job to vote something up, to vote it either up or down. So Judy, I agree with you.
Barbara, I'm only half agreeing with you on that. I don't think I agree with Jeff. I think that it's a town decision. But I'm very concerned that no recommendation is going to mean to the public that we don't recommend, which is seriously different.
That's what I'm saying. I agree. That's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean.
so the townspeople at town meeting are going to vote their conscience.
They are, of course.
They're going to vote their conscience. That's why they're there at the town meeting. And I think it's our job to advise. And this is a particularly,
Voting no recommendation is an advice. It's one of the three things that we can do.
well, what advice is there?
That is for the opening letter and for the statement after the of 22.
All right, anyway, there's a motion to reconsider. It's been made and
Seconded.
seconded. Further discussion? And if not, I'm just going to go through the window again.
So please remind us.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I got to
Which
remind
way?
myself. So the motion is to reconsider, so a yes vote is to reconsider.
Recommend.
And a no vote is that the previous vote would stand. Clear? Jeff Lewis,
Abstain.
I'm sorry, what?
Abstain.
Abstain. You're going to make it hard for me to count this up. Dana Sheehan. Dana
Motion
Sheehan,
is to what?
the motion is to reconsider.
And then we vote again?
Yes.
Then there would be another motion made, yes.
I vote no. We had our vote.
Vander Slice, I vote to reconsider. Julie Tarmy,
Yes.
John Fulgham,
No.
DeWitt Brown,
No,
Judy Zahora,
Yes.
Barbara Beatty.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so 8. There were 7 votes cast. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses and 1, 2, 3 noes. That is a majority of the votes cast. So the motion to reconsider passes. I may have a job as a town moderator after this.
Yes. And you know what? After this time, our town moderator might not want to come back.
Oh dear. Okay. Is there a new motion on the floor? Does anyone want to make a new motion? I think
I
the
will
motion-
move to
Go ahead.
recommend.
I will second that.
So motion has been made and seconded to recommend.
Hold on. So we've already voted that.
We just voted to
We just
reconsider.
reconsidered it and now we're revoting.
No, we reconsidered the vote to not recommend.
Right.
Okay, and so
So
now
there's
we
now-
can make a new
There's
motion.
now, go ahead. There's now a new motion on the floor, and the motion on the floor that's been made and seconded is to recommend Article 22, or that the Finance Committee's recommendation will be to recommend. If that's not using the word recommend too many times in one sentence. Discussion.
We voted this already.
That's why we voted to
That's why
reconsider.
we reconsidered.
All right, I'm going to take them in the order they appear in the in the Zoom window, a yes vote is a vote to recommend, and a no vote, as before, it's not a vote to not recommend, but it,
To vote not
You-
to recommend.
yeah. Thank you. All right, Jeff Lewis. Do you want to spin around and go by you?
Yeah, please.
All right. Vanderslice, I am voting to recommend, yes. Dana Sheehan,
I'll stick with my original vote to not recommend the article to take the eminent domain.
Julie Tarmy,
Yes,
John Fugum. You want us to spin around that later?
Sure.
DeWitt Brown,
No,
Judy Zahora,
Come on, say yes. Come on, say yes.
Yes,
what was that?
Barbara Beatty,
yes, it's a yes.
Thank you.
Barbara Beatty.
Yes,
All right, so we have two folks that have not voted, Jeff Lewis and John Fugum.
No,
So no for Lewis?
No for Lewis.
No
I
for Lewis.
voted no.
I like,
Mike, shut off.
I like Jeff's previous vote better, so I'm gonna vote no as well.
1, 2. It's a tie vote. And a tie vote means the motion does not carry because you need a majority of the votes cast. 4 is not a majority of the votes cast.
So the outcome is the same, that the board does not, that there is no recommendation.
Right.
Um,
Do we have to revote that no
I
recommendation?
think we have to revote the no
Yep.
recommendation.
So someone has to make that motion.
So someone has to make that motion.
Wait a minute. But can we just, listen, I'm sorry, I'm a little twisted. There was a vote on the floor to recommend.
Yep.
That didn't pass.
Right.
So doesn't, by the fact it doesn't pass, mean that there's no recommendation?
No,
no,
You have to vote it.
we have to vote it again.
there has to be an affirmative vote on something.
Well, we'll be here a long time. Someone's gonna make a recommendation, guys.
Exactly. Somebody's got to make a motion here.
I can't do it.
I've already done it once, so I do it the second time. I vote for a no recommendation.
You are moving no recommendation.
That's correct.
All right, is there a second?
second,
No, made in second. So we're back to our second vote on no recommendation. If you vote yes, the committee's recommendation will be no recommendation. I feel like I'm in Alice in Wonderland or something.
yes,
Is that clear what the vote is? Jeff Lewis,
Yes.
Vanderslice, no. Sheehan,
Sheehan votes yes.
Tarmy,
No,
no. Fulgham,
Yes.
DeWitt Brown.
yes, yes. There, it went red.
You only get to vote once.
Yeah, but the thing doesn't turn on.
I know. I'm giving you a hard time. Judy Zahora,
No.
no. Barbara Beatty,
remind me, again, I think it's no means that I do not want it to say no recommendation, correct?
Correct.
So no.
All right. 1, 2, this is another tie vote.
Yep.
I think that pretty much represents the town of Nahant.
I think you're right, Jeff.
I think so too.
Absolutely, absolutely right.
And I am stuck because I don't know Robert's rules if there is a tie vote.
Well,
I think legal counsel went to bed.
yeah,
Maybe then, Bob, the recommendation, or if we say, is that the council or that the finance committee was a split vote. We'll just say that.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I will do some Robert's rules research.
You could say it was, mean that it was a tie. Is that what you mean, Judy?
right.
Yes.
Yep.
Can I make a motion to lay it on the table and take it up in the next meeting?
I don't know.
This has been voted at least 3 times. I think we have a vote. Whatever the vote is, it votes, but we have to have the statement is the important part.
But we have a tie now.
Agreed, Barbara, but I think we're okay. I mean, I think Kurt's correct, that the next thing is really what are we going to say? And we should probably table that until tomorrow. We talk about what we're gonna say.
But we need to say that this was a tie vote.
That's right.
Well, yes. Yep.
So that means we don't put down,
We still put words under it. We
Yep.
can say that the finance committee was a tie vote whether to recommend or recommend no recommendation. And then, but you know, we'll come back to do some sort of wordsmithing to go with it. But I do make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Want to give that some thought?
Is there discussion on that motion?
No.
no.
Louis, you were voting on adjourning.
Adjourn, I vote yay.
Vanderslice, yay. Ian.
Yay.
Oh, everybody moved on me.
Brown,
John,
yay. Yeah.
John Fulgham, Julie Tarmy.
Oldham, yes.
Yes. Carmen,
And
yes.
we'll on for
Judy
tomorrow night.
Zaburo.
Beatty, yay.
All
Brown,
right,
yes, again, I think. Why doesn't it work?
Yeah, unanimous ayes.
all right. So we are meeting again tomorrow evening at 7:00 PM.
All right, and I'll be at the Coast Guard committee.
All right, so I would suggest we not take any votes until Judy joins us.
They end at 9 o'clock is all I'm saying.
Oh.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night, Judy.